I'll challenge you, I'll challenge him, I'll challenge everyone, I am a king. I'll challenge statuses, I'll challenge me. Step to my game, you got no time to sleep. I run in the wind, I run in the snow. Outwork them all, best expect me to blow. I've tasted the low, I've tasted the high. Best I ever did was to not give it time, I just stayed on my grind. What you gonna do when they come for you? You just go hard. What you gonna do when you lose out? You just go hard. What you gonna do when they come for you? You just go hard. What you gonna do when you fall down? You just go hard. 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 I challenge you, I challenge him, I challenge everyone, I am a king. I challenge statuses, I challenge me. Step to my game, you got no time to sleep. I run in the wind, I run in the snow. Outwork them all, best expect me to blow. I've tasted the lows, I've tasted the highs. Best I ever did was to not give it time, I just stayed on my grind.
Standing in a crowded room, but it feels so empty. I'm haunted by my thoughts of you, and it's killing me, killing me. I'm trying hard to see the light, but the dark knows me by name. I shout your name into the night, 'cause every day I wanna be with you. I wanna be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. I sell my soul just to be with you. And I know it's all my fault. I feel the guilt and the shame. Tried to make a deal with the devil, but he just turned me away. So what can I do to get back to you? I run through the fire and bathe in the brimstone. Visions of your face, it keeps me away. I have no peace, this pain won't leave me alone. No, I'm trying hard to see the light, but the dark knows me by name. I shout your name into the night, 'cause every day I wanna be with you.
in too deep. Tell them get out the kitchen, you can't take the heat. Hey, what I'm doing, hey, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Yeah, can't stop, nah, won't stop. Yeah, spin on live, you don't believe it, just watch.
Second's just the first to lose. Working in the gym, taking shots, I'm trying to perfect my moves. Early bird gets the worm, I don't got time to snooze. I'm not in the frat, but every year I still pay my dues. Do it for mama dues. Wanna get a house with a pool and an amazing view, so she could watch her son do what he wanna do. Cause lately I've been ballin' like an alley-oop.
We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. Y'all don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. Y'all don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face.
You say you're looking, keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, but never find someone who's vibing. Keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, never find another me. Try, never find. Try, never find. What is missing when you've been? Tell me something I can hear. Body screaming. You won't admit that you want me close. I know you need, you know I know. When you're with me, you feel it the most on the low, low, low. You say you're looking, keep looking for it, but you can't find it. Can't find another one to get around with. You try and try, but never find someone who's vibing. Keep looking for it, but you can't find
spinning around. Yeah, I was once lost, but baby, you got me feeling found. It's time to show me how it's done. This is the glow up. Come on, it's time to have some fun. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna break it down. We giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. We're gonna show 'em. I've got to keep fighting. Strike hard, I'm like lightning. It's my life, I rewrite it. Yeah, I'm gonna show ya. Late night, yeah, my head be spinning around. Yeah, I was once lost, but baby, you got me feeling found. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up. Come on, it's time to have some fun. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna break it down. We giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. We're gonna show 'em. I know we're gonna make it. We just played a waiting game. I know that we were born for this. I know that we are stronger. We just gotta believe in something. You just gotta believe in us. I know that we were born for this. I've got to keep fighting. It's time to show 'em how it's done. This is the glow up. Strike hard, I'm like lightning. It's time to have some fun. Yeah, it's my life. That's right. And I've got to keep fighting. We're giving big love. We're gonna show 'em how it's done. That's right. Come on. This is our time and we're gonna show 'em.
Do you feel what the eyes can't see? You hear it calling way down deep. Trust your heart, it'll keep you true. This world expects so much from you. soul. You will walk out pure and whole, stronger than the day before. Tomorrow you'll fight for more.
So don't you tell me about no tears, no pain, no fear, no gain. 'Cause I know what it feels like to touch the bottom when the top is just a moment away. Don't leave another second wasted. You make it count so you can show all you made. I know tears, no pain, no more excuses. So don't you tell me about no tears, no pain, no fear, no gain. 'Cause I know what it feels like to touch the bottom when the top is just a moment away. Don't leave another second wasted. You make it count so you can show all you made. No, no, I know tears, no pain, no more excuses. So don't you tell me about no tears, no
Luscious, divine, I'll empty your mind, 'cause you want me to. I'm so twisted, you're addicted. I feel your pain, 'cause you want me to. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you everything you want. Make you feel I'm so good for you. Love being bad for you. 'Cause I can't give everything you desire. So close the doors, let me in, let me taste the darkness in you. No one serves me like you. You ask me to slay you, to burn you, to haunt you, so you feel. So do you feel me now? I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you.
playing with fire, don't know if you knew. So let me make this clear, a cloud is forming. The storm is heading right in front of you. Let this be a but let this be a warning, 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 a warning, warning, a warning, 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 a warning. Let this be a warning, 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 a warning, 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 a warning. Let this be a warning. Let this be a warning.
It's a cruel fate for love to fall apart. It's a switch blade drawn across my heart, and I don't wanna think what I'm thinking. And I don't wanna fall, but I'm falling. Deep, deep, deep in the dark. Deep, deep, deep in the dark. Fires keep burning. Desires keep turning black. It's not over till I say so. It's not over till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it. I lie low, but in truth, I'm biding my time. Gonna mark what I choose, gonna sharpen my tongue. And I want to be free, but I need you. And I'm not gonna beg, so I tell you. It's not over till I say so. It's not over till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go. Go till I'm ready to let it go.
I'll challenge you, I'll challenge him, I'll challenge everyone, I am a king. I challenge statuses, I challenge me. Step to my game, you got no time to sleep. I run in the wind, I run in the snow. Outwork them all, best expect me to blow. I've tasted the low, I've tasted the high. Best I ever did was to not give it time. I just stayed on my grind. What you gonna do when they come for you? We just go hard. What you gonna do when you lose out? You just go hard. What you gonna do when they come for you? We just go hard. What you gonna do when you fall down? You just go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Go hard.
But you let me down. Yeah, I could try to act like I don't need anyone. Pretend it's me, myself, and I'd rather be on my own. But I know I can do this alone. If I had a nightmare, tell me, are you right there pulling me out? If I was to hide, yeah, tell me, are you right there pulling me down? Pick me up. If my world was crashing down, would you make it stop? I think for you, but would you do the same? When everyone's gone, are you gonna stay? When demons come through, would you push them away? Would you push them away? Are you gonna stay? If I had a nightmare, tell me, are you right there? Pulling me out, me out. If I was too high, yeah, tell me, are you right there? Pulling me down, me down.
too deep. Tell them get out the kitchen, you can't take the heat. What I'm doing, getting right to it. The money is talking, I'm flowing, it's coming in just how I do it. Can't stop, nah, won't stop. It's been on live, you don't believe it, just watch.
time to snooze. I'm not in a frat, but every year I still pay my dues. Do it for mama dudes. Wanna get a house with a pool and an amazing view, so she can watch her son do what he wanna do. Cause lately I've been ballin' like an alley-oop.
We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. I don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. We ain't in the same league, not even the same game. Going all in, I'm just trying to maintain. I don't want me to win, I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face. I can see it on your face.
Lashes divine, I'll empty your mind, 'cause you want me to. I'm so twisted, you're addicted. I feel your pain, 'cause you want me to. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. I'm so good for you. I'm so bad for you. 'Cause I can't give you everything you want. Make you feel I'm so good for you. Love being bad for you. 'Cause I can't give so close the doors, let me in, let me taste the darkness in you. No one serves me like you. You ask me to slay you, to burn you, to haunt you, so you feel. So do you feel me now? I'm so good.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to match number 3 of the PCS Summer Playoffs, of course, brought to you by Riot Games, Carry Live, and our accommodation sponsor, our hotel, keeping the Chiefs, Bliss, and Frank well accommodated over here in Taiwan. And now, before I get into it, of course, there is a PCS Facebook page that you definitely should follow. It's going to have infographics on both past games, current games, and games that are coming up. So definitely something to keep in mind when you are looking for information around the Summer Playoffs. I am your host, Vestian. Next to me, it's Shock.
I am here. I'm back for what I think is going to be the best series of the week. I'd have to think it will be J-Team, of course, taking on Beyond, and this is one that it feels like it's been brewing for a while.
Yeah.
And when we kind of talk about the PCS teams in general, a lot of the time we do sort of separate that top 3 from the rest. It does feel like PSG, J-Team, and Beyond are a bit stronger than everyone else, but you might even make an argument that J-Team and PSG are in a league of their own, right? It feels like Beyond, maybe at the start of the split, could claim to be a very heavy title contender, but it feels like they lost something along along the way. Now it feels more like the Betty show, and this could be a game of just Betty versus Driver.
Yeah, the Doctor is in session in this one, and Dr. Ivor up here in the top lane. I mean, he's a thrill to watch, and I'm so excited to get to see him up against Lakai today. But this is the brackets we have. Of course, tonight will be that matchup you see there, match number 3, J-Team versus Beyond. Tomorrow will be PSG DCG, and going forward to next week, the loser brackets will be where we start off with Team Bliss versus CFO, followed by Chiefs versus Frank. And I guess, as you touched on, probably the match of the week, but I would almost suggest it's one of the most intense matches of the entire playoffs, because these guys are 1-to-1 in the head-to-head, and ultimately both times Driver was a leading factor in J-Team's success. They fell short in the first game, but certainly wasn't off the back of that man there in the top lane. And I think ultimately around the Rift, they don't feel very outmanned in any of the roles. Of course, you could argue that Betty looks a lot stronger than maybe the J-Team bot lane, but I don't know how true that is, because it feels like Enso and Keres now, especially in the latter half of the split, feel fairly evenly matched, because Enso making a whole lot happen around the Rift, and Bruce playing nice and safe, scaling up and getting a lot of damage done by his own right. So I don't really feel like there's any necessary weaknesses here for J-Team that are overly exploitable. And on the other side, for Beyond, it does feel like that top lane is a bit of a weakness, and it's something that Driver has exploited in the past. And I think here in a best of 5, where at least one of the games he's going to get his pick on the red side, if not multiple, you do feel pretty good here as J-Team. Now, I will say they do have side selection, and it looks as if... Did we see Beyond first? We did, right? They've chosen red.
Did they? I think they chose blue.
Oh, they chose blue?
I'm pretty sure they did. I mean, we'll see when we come to Champs. I'm pretty sure they chose blue, which would be interesting because they, like you said, have made really good use out of that red side counter pick before, but maybe
blue.
It's just a case of they really want to have more flexibility in those first 3 bans, but it is Beyond on your screen here, and I think that we've kind of said Beyond all split long, they play a lot around Kongwei, Betty, and Keres, where it feels like Lakai and 1116, they don't necessarily take a backseat, but they are more enablers. And I think when it has been J-Team up against Beyond, it's always been, can Lakai survive top lane? Because last time, and yeah, actually both times, really, it was Driver who was just taking over in the top side. And I think Lakai is not just exploitable as a player, but I think his champion pool is really starting to show deficiencies. He's pretty much only playing the Jax, and Driver has a lot of different picks into Jax, so it could be hard, I think, to come through and pick it. I wouldn't even be surprised to see it get banned second phase, just to make things a little bit easier, but we'll have to see what they go for.
Yeah, and I think interesting, if any of you caught it in the pre-game, there was infographics on especially Betty there in the last series up against Team Bliss, and over the 3-game series he had, he averaged 1,100 damage per minute, which is an insane stat, especially from an AD carry, where oftentimes they don't find damage until the later stages of the game. But the fact that this guy had that much damage in such a short amount of time was pretty incredible. Obviously, some of that came off the back of his, was it 17-1 Zeri game?
18.
18-1? Something like that. It was an insane game out of Betty, that one. And yeah, I think he had like a 29 KD, which means 29.5, I believe it was. He's died twice in the last series. So definitely something that J-Team have to watch out for. But as I said earlier, it does feel like the side of J-Team don't feel that outmanned when it comes to the bot lane. Stats comparison though, this top lane I think is a very vocal point here for J-Team. Look at that gold difference. That is a massive gap between those top laners.
Yeah, the gold difference at 14 is really, really high there. And the forward percent, it actually favors Lakai, but I wonder how much of that is just Jax naturally pushes in the early game quite a lot.
And he does a lot of proxying, this guy.
That's true, yeah. Damage percentage, of course, is there for Driver as well. And I think he is just such a big part of J-Team. And it's not like J-Team were really lacking in the rest of the roles, I guess. But he's really brought something new to the team. Just a third carry option, which is really, really nice. And I think his champion pool is pretty different compared to most PCS tops. Of course, he can play the meta, but he's very willing to pick up things just to win matchups, which I really like to see. And it's very different from Lakai, who's going to just play more of a tank or a facilitatory role for his team as we head into the draft. It is the Nico and LeBlanc taken away from 1116. I wonder, do you think that Annie will join them?
I wonder. The thing is, obviously it does suit Beyond to get the Annie and then pair it with that Viego, but how the draft is currently, it is going to be the Azir left open perhaps, unless Beyond decide to ban it. And I think J-Team feel pretty comfortable to pick that Azir into the Annie. Definitely a stronger mid laner here that is going to be able to get to those item spikes on the Azir. Minji's Azir has been phenomenal this split, and it feels a bit scary to give it over. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see it banned. It is going to be the Maokai banned, however, which reduces the strength of the like of Tristana, which was another fantastic Minji pick. Obviously not all that many APs left to pair with it, although he is hovering it right now, so has picked it. And admittedly, J-Team are completely fine to give Driver the AP pick up in the top line. The Rumble, he played that a couple times. The Gragas, he's looked phenomenal on, and very, very hard counters Lakai on the Jax. In fact, the first time these guys matched, I think Driver solo killed Lakai's Jax as Gragas, I think twice, if not 3 times. So maybe it means that Beyond will be a bit more scared to pick that one up.
For sure. Now, the Rumble did get banned away, so that's one less option that there will be.
Kai'Sa goes on.
But there's a lot of other ones, and Tristana for Kai'Sa, I think now people are more willing to just pick the Zeri into the Kai'Sa. I would be surprised, I guess, if it's a Xayah picked up, because it feels like while the Xayah does well, eventually Kai'Sa ends up getting AP, a lot of poke, and at that point it doesn't really feel that good. The Annie lock-in really isn't a surprise to me. I think it's fine versus Tristana, and it works really well with whatever character jungler Kongwei wants to play.
A lot of Kazakhs he's played already this
That's true, yeah.
playoffs.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Viego looked at again, though.
Yeah.
J-Team 2-3 should be ADC. Or
well,
maybe.
could be. If you're picking Milio this early, you're probably locking it with Ashe or Lucian.
You would think so.
Are they going to go Lucian? I think Ashe might be better.
I prefer Ashe as well. I think having more engage options is nice, but maybe Lucian is just a bit more carry potential overall. We'll have to see which one they prefer. I mean, they can just hold that pick. There are lots of things that can be paired with Milio.
Wow.
And would it just be the Rel jungle picked up now? This
different look.
Pretty much guarantees that it's going to be, I guess not guarantees, but it suggests that Driver is going to be on an AP pick top. Obviously, the Milio plus Lucian especially does bring quite a lot of magic damage to the table. Nautilus.
I am scared though. Beyond have got pretty much exactly what they want. Admittedly, J-Team have a very nice draft for themselves too. The Azir here, that's not going to be Azir, it's just going to be a support. I was going to say, theoretically, Annie could be the support, but that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense as to Beyond's playstyle.
Well, we move on to the second phase and Beyond. I think the obvious thing to do is to just ban away these combos with Milio. I wonder if there's any point banning AP tops. I suppose it's the Gwen and the Gragas. Rumble is already banned.
Yeah, and you also might just want to ban the Ashe Lucian, who are the 2 best pairings with Milio. And it looks like that's the angle they are looking towards, which does give Driver... I'd almost be surprised if he doesn't just lock in Gragas here. I don't think you really want to blind the Gwen, especially because Gwen is really hard countered by Jax, and Jax is still on the table, unless you do ban it here. And admittedly, there is also the chance that they take top lane first, but you feel like you can't really afford to give Driver his choice of matchup.
It is that Lucian Ashe. Do you think it'll be a Poppy ban, maybe?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe. Kongwei looked really good on it. Does well into Jax if that's what Driver wants to blind pick. But I would be... I mean, what else would you ban? Maybe the Kazakhs? Something that Kongwei pulled out a lot?
They banned the Nocturne. Makes life for Tristana at least a little bit easier. You can afford to dash forward without getting punished for it. And I am interested to see what Kongwei goes for. I expect them to counter pick top, but the way this team plays, maybe they would value the jungle counter pick higher. And it could be the Kazakhs. I have to say, I'm not sold on Kazakhs yet as a pick.
Yeah, I think Kongwei had a pretty quiet series other than the Poppy game, as well as why not on the Kazakhs. Didn't show really... I mean, neither of them really showed that the Kazakhs is a power pick. Sivir. Now, Sivir has been coming up a lot more internationally. It's the first time, I believe, at least in recent weeks. I think we saw one other Sivir. But definitely in recent times, this is the first Sivir we're going to see. And I mean, I don't love it for Driver. But admittedly, what really can you pick against it? That I like a lot more.
Does feel like, ooh, I'm down for the Gragas blind because I think it makes it really difficult for Lakai to pick his Jax, and there aren't many champs that do well into a blind pick Gragas. It feels like maybe the Aatrox could be an angle, but it feels like you do just take the phase rush as the Gragas, and then as long as you can get out of those Ws, you're not too worried about the trades. Will this be the lock-in? I'm not sure what else you would pick. Maybe you could pick some sort of full tank, but it doesn't feel like it would be as good. I feel like they would prefer having more damage. But maybe they just want the Kai on something that can more safely neutralize. It ends up being the Cassante. Well, two very different comps here. I think no surprise really that Beyond have gone towards what they went for, right?
Yeah.
Leaving Betty Kaiser's kind of a no-brainer that you're going to pick it up, and 1116 is Annie being the only facilitatory mid left. But I'm not sure if I like it on paper. They have got everything they want, admittedly, but I think J-Team's comp is probably stronger.
I do think so too, but there's always that huge worry that Betty's Kaiser is just going to end up taking over the entire game. And I think that is, I mean, obviously you look at the side of Beyond, who and which champion do you expect to win this game for them? It's the Kaiser, it's Betty.
Pretty much.
So, I mean, in terms of that, you've got the hyper carry player on a hyper carry champion. The best, probably AD carry on the current patch, which feels very scary. Now, admittedly, Siva doesn't really have to interact with Kaiser at all because she pushes the wave faster than any other champion in League of Legends, even if she does not go for that static shift, which sometimes the Sivas do go. If you do go Kraken Slayer with that Ricochet, with that Boomerang Blade, you do just end up pushing the waves faster than anyone else. So, I mean, it's interesting. This is a different look here for the side of J-Team. They have Siva, which can enable some of the other champs around, as well as the Milio, which is pretty good against the Annie, I have to say, in particular. So I don't hate it.
Yeah, it does feel like J-Team very much knew what Beyond were going to go for, and I think that makes sense, right? If you do leave up the Kaiser and you do leave up the Annie, Beyond are of course going to take it, which sometimes that can be a strategy coming into a best of 5. Of if you just leave up some of those power picks, kind of direct them towards them, you can make a plan around that far in advance rather than having to kind of guess as to what your opponents will pick and then make a bunch of different plans. Instead, just get them to pick the champs you want them to. It is risky though, like you said,
Yeah.
Betty's Kaiser, very fearsome.
Straight into a pause. Now, prediction for the series here. Shock.
Ooh, I think I'll give it to J-Team 3-1. I think the
Okay.
overall J-Team are the better team. They're a lot more well-rounded, but I think there's going to be at least one game here, and it might be this one, where Betty just goes ballistic and 1v9s.
Okay. Look,
What do you think?
I have faith in the Doctor. I'm going 3-0 for J-Team.
3-0. Ooh.
Yeah, I think, as you touched on, just the more well-roundedness that we have from J-Team, where a game, Minji can carry a game, Driver can carry a game, Bruce can carry a game. And I think, ultimately, the other parts, Inso probably the most stable support we have, as well as it feels like Lalva is at this point, too. I mean, he doesn't really make the huge plays to win his team the game, but he definitely makes plays to enable the rest of his team to win the game. And I think that's a key thing here that sometimes the side of BYG are lacking, because if Kongyue doesn't get the resources he needs, he's not going to be able to carry the game, and it really does get left just onto Betty. And Betty's got to go up against the Doctor, against Minji, against Enso, and I think that is going to be very, very hard to play against.
Can be. I mean, they can definitely make comps that are just difficult for Betty to play in, and this could be one of them, especially if it is the AP Kaiser. The Sever, of course, can absorb all that poke, and there's a fair amount of sustain even coming out from the Milio, so I don't think it's a super clear cut. This is a Kaiser 1v9 coming through. It's just, you know, Betty is legendary on the champ. It will be the Airy Annie once again picked up, so do need a bit more early pressure against that Tristana. And Phase Rush on the Gragas as well. He has the Scorch, which he's used to pretty good effect so far, and actually Driver, he needs to be a little careful. There's a few people. He's used E.
The boy's a hair Driver.
Might have to flash this hook.
He is going to flash it. Does get away. But that is costly. This sets up Lakai for a much easier time up in that lane. Admittedly, I think Gragas should stay pretty safe regardless. Has that Phase Rush. Obviously, can't really proc that level 1. And, ooh, look at that infographic. Enso.
7-0.
He's not a loser on the Milio. And, I mean, we'll see probably why this game. I wanted to touch on, though, in terms of these comps, is that oftentimes we see the Kaiser, and the reason it finds so much success is that it's just able to sit there and poke away at people the whole time. But I think J-Team here have really, really picked so good. They've got so many go-forward options. The Gragas going in, the Sivir enabling that, the Rel being enabled by Sivir as well. And then once you are, if you get onto the Kaiser, Tristana has a pretty easy time in following up and being able to take down that Kaiser, who is pretty much your whole team's damage. Obviously, there will be a Leandri's Annie doing a little bit, but ultimately the DPS in a team fight should pretty much only be Betty, and as long as you can shut him down, you should feel pretty good about yourself.
We'll see. I feel like this is one of those team comps from Beyond that has potential to deal a lot of damage, right? Sometimes Cassante has those pop-up fights, and Kha'Zix, of course, if he manages to find some isolated picks, can find himself really, really ahead. And carries it. Wow, he's flashing forward already.
Does hook onto Bruce, who is going to have to use that Ghost, but all things considered, remaining fairly high in health and actually trading back some really good damage, popping that heal, forcing Betty to pop his heal as well, as J-Team are going to hit level 3 and just 2 more minions. And so Kara is looking for the proactive play. It was traded for the sums there of J-Team, but ultimately, it's an equals... Actually, it's a trade that favors J-Team.
You do think so, especially because they have the sustain and the priority. And I believe this was the patch that Milio got nerfed. So if Milio does remain a power pick, or at least there's some sort of answer, maybe it's something we see more into the Annie, I think that adds a lot more, or more of an interesting dynamic to the bot lane, because there are a few teams, notably J-Team and PSG, that do like the Milio. So it would be nice to have that in the mix as a viable option.
Oh, game paused again? Yeah, I think it is pretty exciting to see the Milio. And I think not only because of the Milio, because it enables the option of Lucian as well. And I just think Lucian's such a fun champion to watch when it is on these really, really good AD carries. Bruce has played a couple games of the Lucian Milio, obviously winning both of them. And I think his biggest pop-off game, which I can't remember how many kills he got, but I think it was 16 as well. It was on the Lucian, and it was a pretty disgusting game from him. Looks like there may be an audio issue with Betty, just guessing.
Well, shouldn't be too far then until we get back into the game. And I think both junglers are clearing towards bot, so I'm not sure if we'll actually see any ganks, but I think both junglers will want to hover, especially now that sums have been burned. And it should remain a hot spot. Top lane is Gragas versus Cassante, so even with that flash burn, probably can't put too much pressure up towards there. Just not much that's going to come of it. But that bot lane, very volatile.
Definitely. Especially now that there's no sums available for the side of Beyond. There is flash on Betty, but everything else is down. Ignite was used, flash from Nautilus was used, as well as Betty's heal. So summoner advantage there for J-Team. Could mean there's something to look for. Obviously, there isn't really much gank set up when you look at the Sivir Melio lane, but just protecting them from the possibility of a gank coming there from the opposite side from Kongyue on the Kha'Zix might just be what you really need to do as Lalva.
Could be. Back into the Rift, though. You know what I'm excited for? I'm excited for Minji's Tristana, because every time I see another Tristana, I start thinking, this champ sucks.
Yeah.
And then Minji plays it, and I'm like, wow, this is broken.
Yeah. He is extremely good at the Tristana. Probably the best Tristana we've seen in the PCS. I mean, what other names would you even put up there with him? It really feels like it's just
having some pop-off performances on Triss, but they weren't, he also had some bad games on Triss.
Whereas Minji,
every game. Really, really dominant performances on it.
Definitely. Now, you're seeing the Sivir keep priority, will keep priority pretty much the entire game, assuming she doesn't get behind for some reason. I'm at the top. I think we see this pretty constantly with drivers. Gragas gets pushed in, freezes the wave at his tower, and has his way with whoever he's up against.
Does feel like the way to go. I'd be surprised if anything ends up happening. Top lane does just feel like it's kind of going to be a snooze fest. Cassante, one of those champs that potentially can just out-sustain Gragas' damage. So he has the Scorch, but without the comment on top of it, it is going to be more difficult. I wonder if Driver will go to Leandries this game. Oh, because he goes Everfrost pretty much every time, and I think this is also a pretty good Everfrost game, but for dealing with Cassante specifically, the Leandries is probably more valuable, so we'll see how much stock he puts towards that 1v1 as opposed to the team fight. Yeah,
we haven't seen a top Leandries Gragas, I think, since the spring playoffs when Solo Kill did it. Yeah, but admittedly, in that game, I think Solo Kill popped off pretty incredibly. He did like 40k damage in a fairly quick fashion.
Dead.
But Betty got his recall off. Didn't lose too much for it, although is down a couple of CS. Going to slowly push this one back to the Sivir. Bruce picking up a Cull as well as a Longsword. So we still don't really know what build path Bruce is going to go for. It's pretty much going to be either the Kraken or the Static Shiv.
I wouldn't be too surprised if he just goes to Kraken, because I think this will probably be Shiv Tristana, especially with the fleet. And then, of course, have the Gragas for AP damage as well. So I guess it's how much do you value having even more wave clear? Doesn't feel like it's that necessary. Oh, nice dodge
Ooh,
from
yeah.
Lakai.
Driver's pretty low on mana. Does
Yeah.
have to be a little bit careful. His flash is back up from that level 1, so should feel pretty safe. I think that means he's... I didn't remember the runes, but he should have Inspiration and Cosmic Insight.
Yeah, pretty sure he did. Level 6 picked up there for Driver as well. Looks like mid lane bases come out too, so now eyes on bot lane. What's going to happen with this wave? Should just be crashed. It's hard for J team to freeze this. They just have a bit too much wave clear. Guess they could try. They're going to hold it here for now, and so takes a little bit of damage there. And Lava is in the area. There's no flash on Keres, so he could be a target, but with the Milio Sivir, they don't really have gank set up. Feels like it can only be a counter gank, as he will get spotted out there.
Kogniwe's location known as well. Defends the pink. I think should be a pretty quiet start to the game. It does make sense that it's going this way because ultimately both teams want to get some items online. You'd argue maybe if there was a skirmish to break out immediately, it should favor the side of Beyond, and maybe knowing that they are going to look towards this dragon. But I think all things considered, it isn't that Beyond favored. And once 6s come through, you feel like even less so because there is quite a lot of counterplay that the side of J Team have against Beyond, having that Breath of Life, having the Spell Shield against Nautilus.
Lava maybe looking for something on bot, or could just be giving them some priority. Beyond need to be careful. I think they do suspect something, and the wave will come to them, so they will most likely be fine. 1116 though, in mid lane. He's getting himself a slight lead, and I'm not sure if you saw, but good bear control allowed him to check the Raptors actually and get confirmation that Lava was on them. I think that is a difference between good Annies and great Annies, is how they use the bear. Big damage straight in the top side. One thing I actually noticed from, I can't remember who was watching, but a lot of Annies just let the bear die really easily, but I noticed that a lot of the better Annie players, they just trade out the bear's HP and then just send it to the back of the lane, let it regen, and then bring it back. So you just always have it live and full HP. Makes it a bit easier to keep clearing those waves. Ooh, hook onto Bruce is spell shielded.
Yeah. Oh, okay,
Oh,
all
wow.
out coming out here onto Driver. Does have Explosive Cask. Will pop the flash. Lakai going forward. And he is now in a bit of no man's land, but Kongwe comes over, secures the first blood there for the side of Beyond, and now Lava being looked at, going to be knocked up there by the Natofu strikes, and should be Kongwe picking up a second, and in fact it will be, so nice insight and good timing on Kongwe to match that play from the all-out there, coming through from Lakai.
Good timing indeed, because that should lead to probably this top jungle taken away, and maybe even the Herald on top of that, so can't understate how big an issue that was there, that Kongwe picks up 2 kills. Super, super important. It's just going to take the blue, I imagine, and then start up this Herald. We'll get a replay of it. Initially, was started by Lakai with the longest all-out ever. See how the engage was found. Was it just all over a cannon creep?
It was after. Oh, and the body slam misses.
Yeah, and Lakai finds the angle. And you wonder if maybe he can find the solo kill. He misses the knock up, and you think, okay, he's in trouble. But Kongwe over the wall just one-shots Driver before he has the ability to respond. Lava just CC'd up on the way out. And I was kind of suspect of the Kazakh's pick. But this, if you want it to look good, this is the start you need. He's got his Umbral Glaive, I believe it's called, and the Herald already. So he's really, really strong.
Yeah, definitely. And it should mean the strength coming through from Kazakhs most likely leads them to pick up this dragon as well. You see pings going towards it. Maybe Kongwe wanting some of his jungle first. Obviously, getting those evolves pretty important. So you want to try and rush to 6, which he is now obviously apexed. He's at 7. Next, we'll be looking for 11. He should have the claws upgraded. I think every Kazakhs kind of goes a different route. Sometimes you upgrade the ult depending on how you want to play team fights. Sometimes if you're just trying to get in, get out with a quick kill, you go for the upgraded wings. But I think more traditionally, especially because you do have first strike, you're likely to be upgrading that W. Get some poke out there. Also helps with healing.
I think
More
so.
trades.
It does feel like there is kind of a point in this matchup where Driver won't be able to deal enough damage to Lakai. And maybe it's already reached that point. There's still decent damage being done. I mean, the Kastante wall's on half HP, but Gragas, I think, is normally the one that's ahead in lane just because he has so much poke, has so much sustain, often can force the opponent to base first. Speaking of basing first, it was Minji who was forced to base first in mid, and 116 is doing a great job of CSing, 112 at 10 minutes. Into a Tristana, not something you often see. We'll be going for the Leandries, which I like. Having more AP damage is really good, and I think Rylai's as well against a short-range composition goes a long way. Looks like it will be the Kraken, I believe, on Bruce.
It is going to be Kraken, yep, and it is going to be Shiv as well for Tristana. All out coming through again. Driver trying to get away from it. He does use that explosive cask, and now Larva's here. Phase Rush also procced from the Gragas. Kongwei in the area, though. Do have to be careful. This All Out will last. Larva trying to find something here. Does have access to that Magnet Storm. All Out stop, but it's so close. Driver will go down. The W snipes him away, and now Larva headed for the hills, running away. And on the bottom side of our screen, we see there that it was 116 who rotates down bot, finds himself a kill. And now Minji's going forward. He dives under the tower. It is a nice buster shot. He's going to pick up that shutdown. And this is the power we talk about when we talk about Minji's Tristana. Finds himself some much-needed gold, keeping himself in this game after the roam coming through from 1116.
Was just action all across the rift. I'm not sure if 1116 roamed bot or if he just straight TP'd. It was hard to tell. I'm sure we'll get a replay of it, but either way, was kills across the board. I think Minji getting this shutdown onto Kongwei is a really big deal. Having your Tristana ahead, especially when it's Minji's Tristana, is really, really nice. It's unfortunate that he can't stay around for any plates, but probably with that gold picked up, will have his Shiv.
And it did look so close to a double kill as well. I mean, maybe we'll see it at the end of this replay, but there was so much going on everywhere.
Look, I think he maybe went in a bit too early, but I guess he just wasn't expecting Jungler to be here whatsoever. And was pretty close to that recall coming out. I feel like the All Out as well, you know, again, maybe popped a little too early. I think you probably want to wait until after the phase rush is gone to fully commit to something like this, because the cooldown is long enough that you can take advantage of it, but he lost a lot of health before Kongwei can get here. And while they did manage to get Driver, they're left on extremely low health bars, overcommitted maybe just a bit much before recognizing that Minji could come up here. Okay, so it was a TP behind coming out from the Annie, and I think what is important about this is there was a lot invested, and Bruce didn't die.
Yeah.
So he's still going to able to farm this wave up without too much trouble. He's got a nice CS lead for himself.
Yeah, I think when you talk about these team comps as well, I think it's important to note that while both teams scale pretty well, it does, at least in my mind, favor J-Team. And they also have an incredibly scary comp to push into. It feels almost impossible unless you have that Baron and such an advantage to ever really siege against the server, against the Trist, even against the Gragas.
It's true. I think a lot of this game will come down to what Betty can get done, because the rest of the map is starting to do very well, but Betty is falling a little behind in bot lane. He's still going to get his items on time, so it shouldn't really be anything to worry about, but that Kraken now comes through from Sivir. You think Betty should probably have his Shiv here as well, just in time for a Dragon 2 minutes away. Beyond did already get both neutrals, so off to a good start in that regard. And with the Shiv now, Minji should be starting to tie things up in that mid lane CS. Looks like he's going towards the Merc Treads. Just does not want to get CC'd up by that Annie.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially in the isolated 1v1, 1v1 even. Does mean that if Annie looks for you for like a flash tibbers or just a stun, then you do have a higher chance of getting out, especially if Enso's not in the area. Now, lane swaps coming through. We're going to see the bot lanes head now mid. It is going to be 30 seconds now until that Rift Herald spawns, and a minute until the Dragon spawns, and obviously giving over first objectives here. I think it was the right decision by J-Team, but I don't think they're going to want to give over both this time. But what option do they really have? I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to contest. They should be able to contain the mid lane and get push for themselves, having that Sivir. But is that going to lead to anything, really? It's hard to tell.
Because they do get Prio bot lane as well with a Shiv Tristana. So if they have mid and bot Prio, even if they don't win this straight up 5v5, if they can just keep control of the river, it could be pretty hard for Beyond to get in without losing so much health that it's no longer worth it. Alternatively, there is a trade up. They can just do the Herald and give over the second drag, and maybe don't even need to. They're starting this up 20 seconds in advance, so there could be time. They do have some tempo, but they don't have a lot of DPS on this.
Kira's headed up. Obviously, it is known that they're there. That pink ward will be spotting this, and the next ward goes down. That's not going to see anything. But it should be the hero picked up by J-Team. Are they going to be quick enough to be able to head down bot? They have Sivir still in this mid wave. Although leaving now means maybe the next wave does go in favor of Beyond. Rift Shield, though, ultimately picked up. Driver gets back to his top side to be able to defend his tower. And now Dragon being started by Kongyue. Kazakhs with that upgraded Q will pretty much just one-shot it, but not without a trade. This is the second Herald, so a lot of damage will be done here to this mid tower, but certainly not enough to take it out straight up.
Getting some poke on it, though, feels really, really good. And that definitely can be dived later on if Beyond are not careful. Kongyue, he's taking away a lot of these jungle camps and is building a sizable lead over Larva, but the thing with the Rel is it's always going to find impact pretty much no matter what. Aren't too worried about it falling that far behind. Gonna grab a red here as well.
I'm very close to that 11. I think Beyond won't really want to fight until Kazakhs does hit level 11 because you're missing out on so much strength that you get from those upgrades. May as well just wait a little bit. Betty should be going and pick up that red soul, does in fact do so. So red buff acquired, taken away from Larva, given to both Betty and Kongyue. That feels really nice.
Maybe looking for something here as J-Team. For now, at least, it will just be control around this bot side river. This tower, I think you might be able to break both mid and bot tier 1s here if you're aggressive about it. They should probably know that resets have come through from Beyond. Looks like they're going to set their sights on that bot tier 1 first. They're going to walk down here, allow Minji to push that bot lane safely. He should be able to pick it up, which will be a nice little bit of gold. Can probably equalize it with Beyond. Maybe they're not going to let them.
Looking, does flash forward. It is going to be that Silver Hunt on the hunt being used. There is speed coming through, and Lakai jumping onto Minji. All out use. It's a really weird interaction. It's Buster shot, trying to keep himself alive. He's very, very low. Doesn't manage to get a reset, but Lakai's having a flash over the wall, and Minji, despite being on 1 HP, has remained alive. It's a team fight there. It's only one found, but ultimately it's a win there for J-Team.
So 1 for 1,
Minji
actually.
goes down,
He died to the Leandries. So, but that was really weird with the All Out and the Tristana W. It's hard to say if that was a spectator bug or if that's actually how that works because it did look really, really strange. This Annie's getting to be a bit of a problem though, and one thing that you might wonder is that, of course, Bruce has the Milio ult, but he doesn't have a cleanse of his own. So if that ult is wasted, you wouldn't think it'll be used on anything except the Annie ult, but if there's a way to get it out beforehand, would mean the 1116 can find a lot of value.
Yeah, I think at best you've used it because you need to heal up someone desperately, but that, I mean, if that's happening, you've done something horribly wrong. Yeah, I want to see this all-out interaction.
Let's see this. So he goes for the TP behind, and you pretty much think that when Minji is going for this, especially if he's caught near a wall, that he is just going to get caught by Cassante, taken through the wall and he's going to die. But I guess he went, yeah, I don't know. It looks like it just followed it, kind of like Warwick Q, but I'm not even sure. Lakai did a really good job of flashing out there because if he had let Minji, I'm not sure if he has Triumph. I can't remember. He might have had Overheal, but would have got that heal, of course.
Yeah. Oh well. There's going to be obviously a 1 for 1 in that trade. Should be this tower, going down. It was the bot tower picked up as well.
Now Minji's getting some work on this top tower. Does need to be careful with Kerez in the area, but it's pretty low, and it will go down soon enough. That'll be more gold into his pocket, which is very, very nice. 2 minutes on the third drag, and this is one that J-Team are going to have to fight. You wonder if they're ready for it. They don't have 2 items yet on Minji, but Bruce is looking very, very strong. At the same time, the Riley's on 1116 so early, it's going to be pretty hard to deal with. A lot of the time, the Annie ends up, not picking up the kills, not having as much CS, and really just taking that backseat role. But with 1116, it's not really the case. He is a very credible damage threat for his team. Just a minute away now. There's no TP up on the BYG solo laners. J-Team as well.
There's a lot of protection around this top tower. Minji has to be very, very careful. Kira's waiting in the wing, and 116 there as well means that if he were to be caught out, would pretty much go down immediately. And now Larva and Minji are both here on the top side. I don't think they're going to want to be here for too long because there is no teleport for this Tristana, and the dragon, as you said, third dragon doesn't feel the greatest to give over. I wonder if there's ever an angle. I mean, they have 280 carries for them to just try and rush down the Baron. They have Milio as well, which adds to the damage.
They could try.
I think they'd have the damage as long as Beyond don't immediately react.
Pretty much, yeah. And they do have, admittedly, pretty good disengage as well. Driver could keep them away for a pretty long time. It's not like he adds a lot of DPS to that Baron. The way they're positioning, though, J-Team, they're at least dropping wards around the bot side. Need to be a bit careful, though. As 1116, he's starting to walk down, and Driver probably will match. Driver's TPing early, so it looks like it will be a full-on contest. Currently, BYG with the control. Need to get that Annie into a position where she can find some sort of engage. Kongyue.
Yeah. J-Team will just constantly have mid-pressure, though. It's impossible to push against the server. They're looking at Lakai. It is going to be a lot used. 116, not really having the angle for the tippers. It's just going to use it there onto Lava. Does he not have the Magnet Storm? He uses it right now, and it's Minji who picks up the first one, but Betty picks up one for himself, and now Kongyue trying to jump away as Lakai gets blast coned in. Will find Driver. It's the all-out. It's the killer instinct, but Minji finds himself a second. Bruce is getting very, very low. Flashes away. It's going to be another kill. Triple kill now for Minji on this Tristana as the Void Seekers continue to land, but not enough damage. It's 3 kills for Minji, 2 kills for Beyond, and it's another team fight win for the side of J-Team, but now the Dragon being looked at. Do they have what it takes to stop it? It feels like with the health bars so low, they don't really have any way to stop this Dragon from going down at least.
No, it looks like there are pings towards that top tower, so most likely we'll just be giving this Dragon away. So while it was a team fight win, and I think kills onto Minji are very, very valuable, now Dragon Soul win condition on the cards for Beyond. So it was BYG who were posturing around this bot river, and I think there was a bit of a misplay here with the bear from Annie. We'll have a look, but I think there's not much point using more damage onto Rel unless you can kill her before anything gets off. But she has Aftershock here. She's so tanky. Even with Chain CC, you're never going to kill her before the Magnet Storm goes off, which is exactly what happened. And now, you see, you kind of lack damage into a team comp that really wants a sustained fight. I think Lakai played this fight really, really well. But, yeah, I mean, there's just these 280 carries with their melee are a bit too strong. Need to be able to burst them out, but can't. It looks like picture-in-picture, we've had something go on. A lot of low health bars across the board. Minji and Lova lost their flashes. It looks like it came at the cost of Kongyue, so I'm not too sure what happened there.
Yeah, maybe we'll get a replay of that. I want to say I'm kind of surprised that Lava didn't just use the Magnet Storm a little earlier, because he ultimately didn't find that much with it anyway, and at least proccing that Radiant Virtue keeps him up for a little longer, because you pretty much saw that as soon as he used it was when he died. So you feel like if you had used it slightly earlier, get some Radiant healing, might have even helped the rest of the team where you saw them so low. The extra 200 health it offers could have been a bit of a difference maker in losing that Dragon, but ultimately it was not to be. Something that we could perhaps look towards later. He does pick himself up an Abyssal Mask now, which is a very nice item, especially once you are up against the AP Kai'Sa, the Annie, and it does help Driver do a little bit more damage in these fights as well.
That is true. The Void Staff on 1116 would be nice if you can get it completed. It's only on the Blighting Jewel for now, but with a Hex Drinker on Bruce, that damage is going to be really nice, and that is the worry that you might have with having a Kai'Sa and Annie on the same team. Mercs and any MR value is very, very high. And there's not a lot of sustained AD. Really, there's Kha'Zix, but it's hard to deal a lot of the time. And Cassante, of course, but can't really deal AoE. Just will be single target for the most part.
Definitely. Now, Vision Control, the name of the game. A lot being afforded here to J-Team as they do just continuously get prio in whichever lane Minji and Bruce are in, which feels pretty nice. Makes the game a whole lot easier to play around. See, Bruce is really getting his items online, as well as Minji obviously picking up those 3 kills, getting very close to that LDR, which is a massive item break point, which allows him to quickly kill this Nautilus, quickly kill the Cassante. We do get a replay of what happened up here.
1116 just strolls up, and I'm very surprised. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how on earth Minji made it out of this, but stunning that creep was huge. He lived. Did have to burn the flash, but I believe Minji has a shutdown, so that would have been a lot of gold picked up, and going over to the Kha'Zix, it would have probably, and that would have been really big. So now, oh, Minji, he's actually hitting the Baron in vision. You mentioned that LDR coming in from Minji. It will help him deal with Lakai a lot easier, but it does mean that he's lacking both sustain for the poke or any sort of magic resist for the burst. So he's going to have to play these team fights very well. And to Minji's credit, he normally does on the Tristana. And other than Dragons, everything else pretty even here. Just a minute and a half away, though. And this is one that Beyond could just DPS down the Baron and trade if they wanted. They have a lot of DPS with their Kai'Sa and the Kha'Zix.
I think to Minji's credit, he does have that Radiant Virtue on the Rel. Also does have a lot of healing that can come through from Melio and shields as well. So it feels a little bit easier to not have to go early into any form of lifesteal. But certainly, I mean, once you get to those 4 items, I expect the 4th item to be one of the Shield Bow or the Mercurial Skim... I mean, not the Mercurial Scimitar.
The BT?
The Hex Drinker. I mean,
Or
even the BT, yeah. One of those 3 items is probably what he'll look towards.
He has MR from Mercs already, so I think you'd likely get more sustain, but who knows? 45 seconds, though, and this could be a very make-or-break team fight. Feels like if J-Team pick it up, they buy the time that they need to just continue to scale, and maybe BYG's window in this game closes. Alternatively, if BYG win this, they might just find themselves snowballing really far ahead, because whoever wins this fight, especially if they win it decisively, probably picks up the Baron straight after. So big spikes now completed. It is more on Bruce, Void on the Annie, and the Rage Blade on Betty.
Oh, and the LDR's completed.
Yeah, lots of spikes. Just in time, really.
Yep, Zonya's as well. Here for Driver, who is now at 2 items, while Lakai sits there at 1 and 2 halves.
Okay.
Interesting build path.
Beyond have control. Driver's maybe looking for some sort of flank angle here, which I do like. Lava, he's taking a little bit of damage, but nothing to dissuade him from engaging. Slowly regaining the control, and the rest of Beyond have to come around. They've gotten here pretty late.
There is a blast plant. Are they going to actually take that away? Kongwei's shield will be taken off of him as Lava positioning aggressively. You have to find a way in before losing all your health to this Kai'Sa poke, and admittedly, Lava has the MR and the Radiant Virtue. Bruce, though, capping them, and 116 goes forward. He finds Driver on the side. It's now a 4v5 as everything's being used onto Minji. He's so low and will be going down. And now it's damage control. Enso and Bruce running for their lives. Lakai, as well as Lava, fighting on there in the Dragon's Pit. It's a triple kill now for Betty. Betty's trying to get more. Voidseeker will miss, but teamfight win there. Massive teamfight win, in fact, for the side of Beyond, as they're still looking for Lava. Doesn't manage to make it over that wall. Will go down. It's a 4-0 there, as well as Dragon Soul acquired for Beyond as they head towards this Baron.
Should just be absolutely everything here from Beyond. They take jungle camps, they take the Dragon, the Baron, and of course, 4 kills to none. And that was a huge team fight, which, while I think Betty played it very, very well, it all started with 116's Annie just finding that flash engage onto Driver. And when he has the Zonyas, you know that if you're going for that, you have to burst him out before he can get it off. And Betty, he had the follow-up. We'll check it here. I think this was really bold because Driver's not even the most important target on this team. So you do have to get the one shot, because if you don't, you're down a lot of cooldowns and you're now mispositioned. But decisiveness, the name in the game. Immediately take him out, and you can see the hook found onto Minji and a lot of damage that comes in onto him. And I think Betty, the tail end of this fight, did play it very, very well. He even found something more. You know, it looks like it might be over here, but manages to flash forward, gets the kill onto Bruce, and manages to disengage. Admittedly, after Bruce goes down, there's not a lot of damage remaining, but that's a huge, huge win for Beyond. It should be a massive gold lead for them now. They take away everything they want and get some stopwatches too.
Yep. Game getting a little bit out of control now for J-Team after that last fight. Obviously, honestly, the fact they're only down 5k kind of surprises me, but it is the case. Obviously, pretty slow up until that point.
Jungle CS is getting a bit out of control.
Definitely.
It is pretty hard now for Lava because his carries will take the camps, and also you just don't have a lot of control over your jungle anyway.
Yeah, and now we're pushing with Baron. I want to say, even though you have Baron, whatever lane Sivir's in, you don't really get to push, although you can look for these dives. But you're seeing it on your screen, even though you have Baron, Sivir is just annihilating the minion wave. The lane Minjian, not going to take as much damage. The Static Shiv certainly doesn't do as much. Minji being looked at, though. It is Kongwei going forward. Is going to have to pop that ult. Does get away. But it is an important cooldown used nonetheless. Minji not having to use anything but the rocket jump. Should be okay to just go back, heal on up. They might lose this bot lane inner for it, however.
We'll see. Sivir probably does have to leave this tower. I think it'd be pretty bold to walk up. Bruce realizes that would be a bit of trouble, so wisely walks away. As another one goes down. But that might be it, honestly. Okay, they TP towards top, so it looks like they will just swap over to that. I think maybe can take one more tier 2. And that'll probably be it. But do have that Elder to play towards. And I don't think it's an unwinnable fight for J-Team, even with the Soul and even with the gold lead. Surely it's BYG favored, but I don't think it's completely one-sided at this point. Benji is going towards the lifesteal. But I wonder if it's actually going to matter. Just because it feels like a lot of these fights aren't even coming down to poke. It's really just coming down to engage burst and being able to live that. Resets do come in. Overall, a 5k Baron power play, which on top of the gold they got from actually winning, you know, that team fight around the dragon, should be even more.
Look at all the zombie wards.
Yeah, wow. So many. Betty just picked up a Void, by the way, so I think he just wants to absolutely delete Lava, and then once that front line is gone, have easier access to those 80 carries.
We'll see if that pans out. Obviously, in the last fight, it didn't really matter. It was just Driver going down immediately, and you feel like maybe that's something you could look for again, because it's pretty easy to follow up on the any engage if you are Kai'Sa.
3 stopwatches for Beyond, all for this Elder fight. And I think that's really important because sometimes, actually fairly often, a single stopwatch can turn a fight around. So having 3 of them gives you a lot of immediate team fight power. On top of the Soul, maybe it's not the strongest Soul, but it's definitely power, again, on top of an already existing gold lead.
I wonder if there's a world where you can delay the Elder Dragon enough for you to take the Baron, or like threaten Baron to get them away from it. Because if you get Baron as J-Team, the Elder Dragon won't matter because you can just continuously wave clear. The Baron lasts longer than the Elder, and wow, that Void Seeker just took half of Enso's house.
Poor guy. It is the chains on Lakai. I imagine he's put them on Minji, but could also be Bruce just for the AoE. I think it's a good decision though. It's going to make him a lot harder to kill. And just a lot less damage out in the fight in general, especially because he is the frontliner. Minute and 20 away. And I think it is going to be pretty hard for J-Team to contest this. Even if they can, in theory, have a chance at winning the fight, it's just really hard to get there. You can see the stranglehold over Vision that Beyond have right now. And not a comp that you'd want to face check into. Even your tanks here, Lava and Driver, they're not that tanky at this point, now that the carries do have those pen items.
Yep, Kha'Zix's fully upgraded now too, feels pretty scary. Betty picking up himself a red buff. This will be uncontested. There's no way you can ever face check into that.
Somewhat late recall comes out of Kongwei, but he grabs a full GA, does not have the stopwatch, and sometimes you actually prefer the stopwatch over the GA, but obviously GA has a lot more stats, and it's a lot easier to use.
Yeah, well, I guess the value that you get in stopwatch is that you're able to use it when you need, whereas GA just happens almost when it's too late, sometimes you feel. So now, LDR completed on Bruce. That is a massive item to have been finished as well. Kongwei jumping into that pit. It is teleport coming through from Lakai. 5v5 on our hands here over this Elder Dragon, which is spawning in just 10 seconds. Now, as I said earlier, Baron not long after it. If you are able to stall out and try and look for the Baron as J-Team, then the Elder Dragon can kind of just go to no use. Lakai holding this minion wave to try and get some fake, almost mid-prio. It's not going to happen though. This Elder Dragon has been started up. Kyrres and the rest of the team blocking off as Betty making quick work, really.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of damage.
All Driver, though, looks for Kyrres. Minji's jumping in. There's going to be so much used all out here. Found onto Bruce, and Enso's trying to kite. Lakai will take down Bruce. The Soul's being too useful. Minji, though, still alive. There is an 80 carry up. 116 might not live. That bomb does go down. Minji gets a reset from that, and it's 3v4. Minji trying to kite away. Might have to just use a rocket jump very, very shortly. Buster Shot comes out first, though, and Minji inevitably was found. It's an ace. It's a 5-for-1 here for Beyond, and they're going to take game number 1.
Yep, we'll be just able to walk down to this bot wave and pick it all up. So J-Team, maybe not the way we expected the series to start, but wow, Beyond really came to play. And this makes things a lot more interesting because, you know, you were worried that it would be a 3-0 to J-Team. I was thinking, you know, J-Team, they come in the favorites, but Betty might carry a game. But honestly, while Betty played very well this game, I think 1116 and Lakai put up a really good performance.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I think Lakai found perfect angles pretty much on most of those team fights as the Cassante. And starting the game off by picking up a double kill onto Kongwei was a really bad start for J-Team. I think it's the exact way you don't want the game to go because it feels like if the Kazakh isn't ahead, who can he really look for in these fights? It's pretty hard to get to the Sivir or the Tristana when you have to go through the Rel, the Gragas, as well as obviously that Melio. But interesting. I mean, Beyond pick it up early. I think a very good start for them. And one thing I want to say is I don't think Betty should get Kai'Sa ever again.
No, I think that while that was not a game that Betty needed to carry, he still put on a really good team fight performance, right?
Yeah.
He was putting up a lot of damage, didn't die at all. So, of course, always very happy to see Betty's work. And yeah, the Betty on Kai'Sa is just one of those combos that you don't give over. One thing I do want to talk about, though, is the Annie, because a lot of the time you see the Nico and the LeBlanc getting banned away from 1116, but it almost feels pointless if Annie is still left up. I think either you ban all three or you just don't ban any of them.
Yeah, I mean, the argument I guess there would be Minji doesn't really play any of them. He has played the Annie
That's
before,
true.
but then giving over the pick of the litter sort of feels even worse. I think they should have been fine into the Annie, I feel like, but it was really just that terrible start on the top side. And I thought Driver would pretty much put on a carry performance in whatever game he wanted, but it really was Lakai who made him look worse than Lakai is, and started off the game there. As I said, Kazakh's 2 kills immediately, puts him very far ahead, gets his upgrades, leads to them getting both objectives from the early stage of the game, and J-Team were really just playing catch-up, and I think if you're Annie in that game, it's really nice when you're going up against a team playing catch-up, because you get to choose when you want to find those fights, and we saw that really come into fruition up in that top side of the river at the Dragon fight.
I think there could be potential. Maybe they just drop the LeBlanc ban and put in Annie for that, because I feel like LeBlanc is a lot harder to execute on and around than the Annie, so that could be something. But like you said, I don't think it was really a draft gap, right? You certainly look at the gameplay as being the cause of that game, but I still think that maybe there's more you could get done. Feels like you're giving 1116 something he's extremely comfortable on. You know, if you just took away the pick and ban completely, and you saw 1116 Annie, Betty Kai'Sa, you would wonder what had gone wrong in the draft. So maybe it will be something around that. But I think the fact that J-Team choose the side and lose, that can shake your confidence quite a bit. Because if you come into game one and you've got this plan, you've watched Beyond play their previous series, you've got a read on them, and suddenly if your read is wrong, that can be really problematic.
Yep, definitely. I mean, you look at the pick bans, and I think they had Jace as their 3rd ban, which is like, I guess you could have just banned Annie, because 1116, in pretty much all of their losses, he's been on either Tristana or the Jace. So you should feel pretty okay giving over either one of them and forcing the Incognue to be on an AP champion instead of an AD champion, which is when Beyond looked the weakest, you have to say. But it didn't happen here, and I think that's another thing to look towards is trying to make something like that happen. But again, I really don't think you can ever afford to just give over the Kai'Sa. It seems like such a... Why bother doing that? It seems like the best champion on the patch. You saw it at those late game team fights. It doesn't even interact. It just throws out Ws. You lose half your health, and the team fight becomes that much harder before you even start it. And it just... Why not get rid of it?
For sure. Or you could have taken it, right? You could have taken the Kai'Sa, and if they take away the Tristana, the Azir is open. So it felt like there were lots of things that J-Team could have done to make this game a lot easier for themselves. They choose the hard route, really, and they didn't execute as well as Beyond, and it did get punished. For sure, it was a playable draft, but I think we both agree there's a lot they could have done, and you almost expect should have done, right? Because I feel like most of the time, J-Team are willing to play those comps like Azir versus Tristana or taking the Kai'Sa away. So it's weird, I guess, to give over what feels like just mainstays of Beyond pretty much for free.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the wise words of Mission, however, though, best of 5s are different. And
that
so
is true.
It's not like it's over here. Obviously, in the regular season, it did start off with Beyond winning their first game against J-Team, and J-Team bringing it back in the 2nd round robin. And so, I mean, I don't expect for this just to be a clean sweep by any means. Especially, I'd still expect J-Team to be the victors of this series. And I mean, if you look at last playoffs, every single series we had pretty much started off 2-0 for one team, reverse sweep came in. And I wouldn't even be too surprised to see that here. We take a look at this replay. This really was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will.
That was pretty much 2 Miracle Engages immediately back-to-back. You know, finds the Gragas and then also finds the Nautilus hook onto the Tristana. And it feels like if you had lost the fight after finding both of those, something had gone horribly wrong, right? And this was such an important fight because, of course, the winner gets that Dragon Soul, gets that Baron as well. Not to mention the 4 kills picked up.
Yeah. I mean, this really was sort of the beginning of the end. This will be the very last fight we saw. And admittedly, Minji probably put on quite a lot of damage. I don't think I saw the damage stats, but I mean, Enzo loses half his health before anything starts.
Yeah, it feels just so hard, I think, when you're J-Team because you're just forced into really bad decisions here, right? You don't have the control over the area. You still have to fight this dragon because normally if you end up in that sort of situation where it's beyond having control of the river, you can just go and trade away the Baron, but it's just not an option with that Elder Dragon up. Maybe, honestly, could have done it and just tried to rely on this Civil Wave clear, but it definitely feels like a losing battle. But maybe they could have bought themselves some more time. Either way, J-Team, they were kind of too far behind at this point, and Beyond just sort of steamrolled them at the end.
Yeah.
Gonna look at the damage.
What a surprise.
Yeah, no surprise, really. It is Betty's Kai'Sa. Notably, Driver's Gragas was very low. They did put quite a lot of pressure on him. A lot of ganks. Burned his flash at level 1. And they did have that red side last... Was it last pick?
Yeah,
I think it was.
came in last.
To just kind of neutralize Driver, and I think they did a good job of it. I would almost like J-Team to choose red side and just use that top counter if they were going to draft like that again, because it feels like normally what you get on blue side is the power picks, like the Kai'Sa, but they got the Tristana, which again, it's a counter or it's a power pick, but it doesn't feel nearly as strong as Kai'Sa.
Yeah, it feels like you were neutralized in both top and mid. Like Annie doesn't necessarily win the matchup, although she was winning the match. She was up like 20 CS when you pointed out at 10 minutes she had like 112 or something, I think you said.
Nice.
So she was up in CS in what was the pick against the power pick, and then you had Driver, obviously a lot of target on him, but he was down as well on the top side, and so really where you often see the wins coming through for the side of J-Team, it wasn't to be, and it is Lakai picking up the MVP. I think this is very, very well deserved.
I can definitely see it, yeah. He found some really good angles, and I think that might even be very important, just because, like, you would have to say Driver had the mental edge over Lakai, for sure, because last 2 times he demolished him, right?
Yeah,
and so this game, picking up the MVP, putting on a performance like that has to feel really good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I don't know if Lakai's had an MVP the rest of the split, but I think this was a very deserved one. He really was the catalyst that got Beyond so far ahead. I mean, this all-out in itself was so incredible. Admittedly, he flashes over the wall and does not land the Q, but it still results in Kongyue being able to arrive here and just look at the damage put out. Picking up some kills, still landing the knockups here. It's pretty, a pretty well-played game, I think, from Lakai. And admittedly, utilizing that red fifth pretty much exactly how you'd want to.
I think so as well. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if that momentum ends up carrying over, because best of 5s, they can be so different, right? Sometimes a team comes in with the correct read and they just end up clean sweeping 3-0 and there's nothing really to say of it. But this series, it is 2 very strong teams and they also have a lot of depth to them, I think, in terms of not so much playstyle, but in terms of champs with that playstyle. Even when you look at Beyond, right, they kind of always want facilitating mid, carry jungle, and then hyper carry ADC. There's a lot of champs that kind of fit that role, so it's hard to ban them all out, and I think it's the same sort of story for J-Team, although in different places, so hopefully it'll go the distance. I think could be really close still.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the most interesting thing for me will be to see side selection, because it feels like if any team were to pick the red side, probably J-Team. But that is a story for after the break. We are going to head now into a little break. Once we come back, it will be game number 2 of Beyond versus J-Team. Welcome back, everybody, here for game number 2 of match number 3. And I just want to say quickly, I'm still impressed with that intro. I think the production have done such a good job on that one. But looking forward to game number 2, I think we're not going to want to see Betty's Kaiser, unless you're a Betty fan, of course.
I
because
am a Betty fan.
It is very exciting to watch. But if you're a fan of a close game, it doesn't feel like you want to see the Kaiser, because that champion makes drafts extremely hard to play around. And I think, honestly, J-Team's draft wasn't even that much of a problem. It felt like they could have made the draft a whole lot better.
I think so as well, and I think that is something that coaching staff surely can diagnose between games and should have time to fix it. I will be really interested to see if there is a side change, or if they're going to say, you know, we're okay with that and we just need to kind of pick in a different order, maybe prioritize that Kaiser over the Trist, because you really wouldn't expect the Trist to come through, and they do run it back on the blue side. And I think that's fine. You know, I think if you lose another game on the blue side, maybe then that's when you start to change things around. But for now, I think there's a lot you can answer back with, and I hope to see that Kaiser either picked or banned away from Betty.
Yeah, definitely. I think if it's open again, you probably just first pick it. The Tristana really doesn't feel like it's as powerful as a pick as a Kaiser.
No, especially not when the Azir is still up, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels like there are still power pick mids available, so you get your choice, really, because 1116 doesn't want to play the, I guess, carry meta mids. He's very happy to play the facilitators, but not as comfortable. And his team, importantly, not as comfortable with him on the carry role.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's something to look towards, especially that Jace ban feels a bit out of place. Because if you are Minji, you feel like if you are the Jace side of the matchup, or if you are the Tristana side of the matchup, you're favored, just because that plays into your champ pool. But it is the Jace ban yet again. Nico banned as well.
Yeah,
Admittedly, the LeBlanc hasn't been banned yet.
That's right. The Jace was instead of LeBlanc. So let's see if they go towards Annie. They do. So I'm surprised the Jace is still getting banned. But I still think this is better. Question marks maybe around what happens with the Kaiser now, though, because you have to first pick it unless you're willing to play into it again.
I don't think you should be. Will it be banned, though? Maybe Beyond look to ban it this time.
Maybe. What did they ban last time? Maokai.
They did ban Maokai, yeah. And they are going to do it again. So, Kaiser left open.
Yeah.
Lock it in. If you want to... Oh, no.
No. Okay.
It's an incident.
So...
I wonder what's going to be picked here.
Yeah, of course it will be the Kaiser picked, and I guess you do just take the LeBlanc with it. I mean, the LeBlanc is not that great into Trist. It's fine. I'm trying to think, what else could 116 play? Maybe something like the Ahri could actually be okay. It's a decent matchup into Trist. You can just hold that charm, and you've got decent wave clear. By the way, it is the Kaiser coming through again, and something I wonder with the Annie ban is, do we think maybe that the Milio was purely in response to the Annie, and maybe now they feel more free to do something like the Zeri or even the Zyra Rakan?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, admittedly, I don't think the Zyra wants to play into the LeBlanc,
No, not into LeBlanc.
Or the Kaiser, so it doesn't feel like this is a particularly good game to be picking the Zyra either. Could just be a Zeri angle, but again, Zeri doesn't feel like it'd be that good into the LeBlanc or Kaiser either. I mean, admittedly, in the 1v1, sure, but it can be hard to keep track of where the Kaiser goes, especially with that Killer Instinct available. It is going to be Poppy locked in. This will almost certainly be for Lalva in the jungle, but still maintains the possibility of a flex pick. Now, Azir open, and if you do leave mids open going into the next phase, it's likely to be banned away from Minji. I'd almost expect... Oh, no, sorry, he's already picked the Tristana.
Now, it can be Trist bot, though,
Yeah.
but I do think it's fairly unlikely. This means they need an AP bot, though. So, I'm not sure.
Varus.
Yeah, Varus Ziggs feels like the ones, or maybe another Milio combo, but I'm not too sure. We'll see, because, like we said, if they really need AP desperately and they can't find a way to get it, you can just put this Tristana bot. But I think Tristana mid is a lot more valuable. Let's see what Beyond plan with these bans, because I think you are trying to limit AP in some way. They ban away the Milio, and I wonder if they're going to ban something like the Ziggs or the Varus alongside it. I wouldn't even be opposed, though, to just setting this Tristana down bot and just having Minji on the Azir. Admittedly, it's not that great versus Kaiser and LeBlanc. You do wonder if it's just so much of a power pick that it's still worth it. We'll see, though.
What about even something like the Ahri? I think like the Ahri wouldn't be too bad. Obviously, you don't really do that well into the Kaiser, but at least into the LeBlanc, it doesn't feel too terrible.
I don't think you'd want the Ahri, just because I think you need a bigger AP threat, especially when you're against Cassante, because if you're playing Ahri versus Cassante, even if you have Leandries, you pretty much can just be safely ignored. Last ban now for Beyond. I guess we get to see if Bruce does play any AP bots. Not sure which one you would play, because even something like Ziggs, it doesn't feel super good up against this. There's a lot of mobility and a lot of ways to get on you. Zaya is that ban.
What if it's the AP Zeri from Minji again?
Could be.
Imagine that.
I mean, they can still just play Zeri bot, I suppose, and that does bring magic damage to the table. Viego, Nocturne was that second phase ban previously. Will it get banned away again? It does. So pick up now for Beyond. Should be the jungler, I would imagine. Unless there's a prior support, if they wanted to take away the Rel, perhaps.
I mean, you could just take Nautilus. They're going to opt into the red 5 counter for the support. And it feels like you could just go for the Nautilus, but maybe they feel like just taking the Kazakhs. This has been where they've picked the Kazakhs in all of their games, being that red 5, or blue 5, but red in this case.
It is the Kazakhs era, I guess. Last game, I feel like the Kazakhs, got ahead, did its job. It still didn't feel overwhelming, I guess, but it was strong, right? It did its job.
Definitely.
4-5 now.
More or less of a run back at this stage.
Yeah.
Obviously, won't be Emilio.
Okay, I like that a bit more. I think more magic damage is good, and I think having the hyperscaling from that is really nice. Question is, what do you pick along with it? Do you think there's any potential just for a Ardent support? Something like the Lulu? Feels like maybe it's too vulnerable against this sort of comp.
Enso has looked really good on the engaged supports too, so
yeah.
I would be expecting an engaged support to come through. Looking like it might be the Rel.
Could definitely be a Rel versus Alistair matchup here. It's kind of a classic at this point. Rel gets locked in, and then will the Alistair be taken into it? There is a Poppy, which maybe makes you think twice, but it's still really good. Alternatively, it is the Nautilus that can be looked at.
Yeah.
See what Keres has in store.
I almost would like the Nautilus better, just because of the pairing with the Kai'Sa.
I think versus Zeri as well, Nautilus is just
true.
having point-and-click lockdown always feels really good.
And at least for now, it is the hover, likely to be the lock-in. We have our team comps all locked in now. I will say that I'm not very happy that J-Team opted into playing against the Kai'Sa yet again. And it also feels like you've given Keres quite a lot of comfort, giving him the Nautilus.
Yeah. I think also it's a comp that, while it's a very strong, stable comp from J-Team, it doesn't really have a lot of threat. It's very kite back. I guess it has the Rel. If you're playing Kai'Sa or LeBlanc in this game, you're never worried about being picked or being engaged on. And I think that makes your job really easy, because a lot of the time we see the poke comps, especially the ones with LeBlanc in them, even if the LeBlanc itself isn't engaged on, the team is engaged on before LeBlanc gets her poke off. But here, it doesn't feel like that's that realistic of a possibility. Really is just Enso that has to start almost all of those off. So I think I do prefer BYG's draft here. Big question mark, as always, around how much value does a LeBlanc find? Because sometimes just ends up being completely useless. No value in early skirmishes while it is strong in 1v1. But needs time to scale, and if that lifesteal, especially on the double AD carry comp, comes in before that point, can put up a lot of damage, but it end up just being pretty irrelevant damage.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see, though. I mean, really, J-Team are going to have to try and punish and get this Tristana ahead of the LeBlanc. Otherwise, LeBlanc and that poke that you mentioned will become a bit of a problem. Admittedly, I feel like they probably realized that the early start that Kongyue found was what led to a lot of the success that Beyond inevitably found, especially through that mid lane and the objectives. So not giving over an early double kill to the Kazakhs, probably a key to success for J-Team. Trying to pick up at least the Rift Shield, if not the Dragon, for that trade early on. But, I mean, we'll have to see, as we are now headed on to the Rift for our second game, between J-Team on the blue side and Beyond on the red side. A fairly similar draft coming out of Beyond here. In fact, other than the Annie, which has been replaced by the LeBlanc, it is the entirely same draft.
Yep.
Pretty incredible to me that they've got Kai'Sa twice in a row. On red side, nonetheless.
Yeah. Minji, he's got that overheal as well as the second wind. I think the second wind especially is important against the LeBlanc. LeBlanc, of course, has the mana flow and the Scorch. So we saw Kizé, I think it was yesterday, pick up the Gathering Storm and the Absolute Focus, which, while it does play more into the scaling, it definitely leaves a lot to be desired in that laning phase.
Hey, he won that game.
He did.
Minions have spawned.
Will we see anything at level 1? Feels pretty unlikely. Not a lot of good level 1 champs for brawling.
No. I think, importantly, Poppy probably does a bit better against the Kazakhs than the Rel, so that might be an interesting dynamic to see.
What do we think of Bruce heal rather than Ghost? Do you think you just need it against Kai'Sa Nautilus to survive?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's about the lane. I feel like you probably just survive anyway, and so should be able to provide enough heal. But maybe it's just trying to not get assassinated in those fights. I mean, you are going up against the LeBlanc, which eventually will be offering a lot of burst. Wow, 5-1 in his PCS career on the Kai'Sa, and you really do see why. Guy's an absolute freak on the champion.
He's
But I
very
think,
good.
back to the heal, I think it does help against the Kazakhs as well as against the LeBlanc later on. Admittedly, the Ghost allows you an easier time in team fights as long as they break out without you losing most of your health.
I think having the Ghost versus the Cassante does go a pretty long way as well.
True.
Making sure you can survive up against that. But so far, it is J-Team getting priority in what looks like all 3 of their lanes. Doesn't feel like Lava will be able to do a whole lot with it. I think going into the jungle is pretty risky at this point against the Kazakhs. But the prio is still there, and that can allow them to have a bit more freedom in these rivers. Big trades coming out on top.
Yeah. Maybe Lava needed to do some more study on Kongyue's Poppy, because it was Poppy versus Kazakhstan the last time we saw this matchup, and Kongyue won the game for Beyond at about 3 minutes.
Yeah, so it's right about time. Ooh, chain connects
Yeah,
there
it does
onto
connect
Minji.
as Minji jumps forward. So.
I think he was aiming for the cannon, and he ended up just hitting Minji. So did lose the cannon, but got a good trade.
Maybe that's what Minji was trying to deny.
Yeah.
It is up quite a bit of CS, really,
He
considering
is.
it's only been 3 waves. 4th, obviously, approaching.
He's getting pretty low, though. I think he should be able to crash this. LeBlanc's cooldowns are pretty long, and also quite hard to hold this wave, although he might try. He's going to go for it. Nope, decided not to.
I think that, yeah, you'd probably lose too much tempo doing that because your health will get so insanely low. Now, it is likely they're just both going to be matched teleports. See what the Tristana can get here is just a long sword alongside the refillable. Doesn't feel too bad. Obviously, getting that sustain again helps you a lot in the lane. It looks like 3v3 might be coming out here. And Rel going forward, it's going to be trades of these summoner spells coming out from the mid laners. Nice steadfast presence there to deny Kongyue getting over that wall as Bruce continuing to wail on the health bars. Minji returning, having had that teleport already used. Lava, there's so much follow-up and Betty is very, very low. Lava confirms the kill there, and it's already a lead for J-Team, turning around from last game.
You see this happen a lot to BYG recently, where Kongyue refuses to give up these Scuttle Crabs. They wanted to fight it, but 1116 had not reset yet. And also, just isn't that strong in these skirmishes. While the Shiv LeBlanc build, very strong and isolated 1v1, can't bring a lot to the early fights. And you can see all they really added here was a Q for damage and then was just immediately walking away, whereas Minji brings the slow and brings a lot of damage alongside it. Flash forward onto Betty, who was quick-scoped there at the end. That's pretty nice for Lava, being ahead in this game. Very big difference between a tank that's ahead compared to behind, especially when those pen items do come through. Now, for mid lane, though, it might even be slightly favored to 116 for now. Does have the better item, and will probably get towards his Shiv a little bit quicker.
I think you'd be slower, right? It's just going over to...
Yeah, but he
Minji.
started with longsword refill.
True, yeah. Kai out of mana now, so Driver will have control over the top side for the time being, but it's going to be teleports coming through here, probably from both top laners after Driver clears out this wave just a little bit. It actually looks like Driver managed to get off a cheetah recall at some stage.
It's pretty nice for him. Lakai will invest his TP, so there's going to be down TP there on that top side. Wonder if 116 is putting points in the queue. A lot of the time you see the 3 points queue in a W max, especially if you are running Scorch, just having that pressure in that mid lane is really, really nice. Now, Kongyue potentially looking towards bot side. He's going to be able to avoid this vision, but there are all sums up for J-Team, so it feels pretty hard to make anything happen. Big lead now, though, for the J-Team bot lane. Will be caught up a lot on this wave, but Lava might have something to say about it. Let's see if he ends up going towards bot at all. Will just hover around mid, wants Minji to be able to crash this wave safely. The wave clear for the Tristana can make LeBlanc's life difficult in the early game. Looks like it will just be a reset. Now Lava, he's looking for the bot dive, but Conway is reading this well. Even if they don't kill Betty, just annoying him here, getting some of the CS away from him would be a big win. They're going to look for it.
Big flash coming through. Stun lands here onto Kyrus, who's going to get stunned up against the wall. Can Conway get here in time? And so getting out, but will he die? The heal almost keeps him alive. It is a trade of kills. Kyrus picking up one, Bruce picking up one. Certainly is favoring the side of J-Team.
It is, and Conway, I think maybe he was slightly too far back. Had to invest a lot in order to get close, but just didn't want to give it away that he was hovering. So you do understand why, but that kill going on to Bruce is a really nice pickup. Has a CS lead and a kill lead now.
Yeah, pretty significant CS lead too. I wonder, I didn't really catch a look at it, but I guess when Betty went down, he probably lost quite a few minions as well to his tower.
Yeah. That will delay him pretty heavily to that Shiv as well. And so we'll just show mid, help this get cleared up. J-Team, once again, they should be getting priority in their lanes here. So could be looking at the Herald or the Dragon.
Ooh.
Pinged onto this Dragon here. It is relatively late, 7 minutes 30 into this, but I think they could also be content to just delay the Herald. They don't really need to start it, and I think they're probably strong enough to put a stop to it. We might see the weakness of LeBlanc in this game, especially if there are a lot of skirmishes in the early game. There's going to be a while before 1116 has that relevant damage. And the way that Beyond like to play, they do normally like to skirmish and like to fight objectives. Conway not the kind of guy to give those up.
Conway's location certainly known.
Yep.
Lots of pings coming down to him.
Is going to grab this, and is he going to start the Herald? They have the mid prior. Yeah, lots of wave clear.
The one curious thing to me is that you have this LeBlanc, which isn't very good at skirmishing earlier, but then you have the Kazakhs that has this first strike, which means he does really want to try and find skirmishes to start stacking up some gold for himself. Get him into those items a little bit quicker. But it really doesn't feel like you're allowed that, given the team comms. Lakai will spot out Lava here with the ward, but Lava starting up this Rift Herald. It might be a turnaround from last game where we saw Beyond picking up both the early objectives. It seems like J-Team favored to do so in this one.
Does look that way, and I think the Herald is pretty much gone. Will there be a trade onto the bot tower, though? Not from the way Conway is pathing. He's just going to clear them all out. So J-Team's bot lane is just going to survive this unscathed. With some heavy hits traded in the top side. Where does this get used? I think mid is probably the place to put it. Just allow Tristana to get further ahead and accelerate her towards the Shiv. They might even look for it now. Minji taking a lot of damage there from 1116. Even more damage
Minji has to be careful here.
Yeah.
Playing with fire a little bit. His teleport does come back up now. Very, very shortly.
Really is showing the strength of LeBlanc in that isolated 1v1 though.
Ooh, fight breaking out down bot. It's going to be a lot used here. Everything, in fact. Magnet Storm will deny the engage for now, and it's Bruce trying to kite around his maximum range to ensure damage as well as his safety, but disengage is coming through. Inso, really the benefactor of the health trades at the moment, but Conway in the area.
He was beelining towards bot.
It looks like J-Team pretty respectful to the fact that that could be happening. Backing off this wave.
Is Betty going to push another one? Because this could be risky. Both his support and jungle reset, and he's still attempting to push this wave. He does have vision, so he's probably going to be okay, and Bruce decides to stay as well. They might even look for Betty here.
Well, he could. Bruce has to be a little bit worried, and there is flash available on that Kai'Sa, so he feels fairly safe. Take a look at it again, though.
I wonder if this could have been a kill. See it again. So I think Betty, he tried to get onto Bruce here, but his W was blocked by a creep. And obviously the Magnet Storm stopped any more engage coming through. I think maybe if it's played out a bit differently.
Ooh, picture in picture. Driver and... Oh, he gets out. That was pretty smooth.
Was a flash for
Minji,
flash.
though.
Ooh.
Nice buffer. Does have the Buster shot. We'll get 116 out of there. And wow, brawls everywhere. No deaths, though. I think it's very important for both of these sides. Conway, as well as Kyrus, trying to make things happen in those solo lanes. Was not to be. They do get flash away from Driver, which could be an avenue to try and punish later. But at least for now, Driver keeping himself nice and safe.
Yep. Shiv's starting to come through. Both ADs got their Shivs at the same time. And while Tristana, Minji won't have it just yet, he can't be too far away. We might have wave clear wars for a lot here. He's resetting, so I suspect he has it.
Have a look. Oh.
He paused. He didn't have enough gold.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
Glitch, glitch, glitch. I didn't mean to recall for 7 seconds.
Yeah.
I think he'll have it, though.
He should.
Just based on the items, I guess, that we see here on Bruce. Now, admittedly, Bruce does have an extra assist, kill even. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's very close, but I would expect him to have it.
We've got the permanent sweeper sound.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gone. I think Corky E might be the worst.
Oh, when it's just rattling off and yeah.
I remember one time playing a scrim and like Yorick has drums or something on one of his skins, and that was playing for a very long
Pentakill,
time.
probably.
No, it was on the, I think it was Arclight or something.
Oh.
It might just be a base Yorick thing. I'm not sure, but
Well, there's not a whole lot of Yorick skins.
no.
You've got a pretty good chance of guessing it, but that's interesting, yeah. I mean, the Corky one seems like the most annoying to me, but we don't have to deal with that. There's no Corky, and we are back into game, so. And the sweeper sound, sadly, gone.
Sadly.
That's right.
A minute away from our next dragon here. I think if you're Beyond, you almost want to make a pick. I'm not even sure you want a straight 5v5 because it does feel like you will be outperformed at this point.
Okay, looking for Bruce.
Maybe that could be the pick.
Okay,
Get
honestly,
a little bit of damage.
didn't do all that much. It is an important amount, but there is a minute to any objective can come up. It just secures himself the Scuttle Crab, which is the main objective for any jungler that has ever played League of Legends.
That is true. Dr. Ivor, he's got his Divine Sunder up there.
Yep, things should feel a lot better for him now.
Does Lakai come down for this dragon? It doesn't look like he will. He's got TP, so he can stay in top. But I think it's pretty difficult for Beyond to contest. Lava, he keeps making moves around mid. We'll drop the Herald there as well.
Yep, dropping it mid, even though you are only going to be able to find a couple of plates. As long as it does crash, which it will. Oh my goodness. This just walked melee range to crash. And Minji importantly picks up some of those plate golds. So, very important. It means that next time there's a Herald, if you are to secure it for yourselves, then you will almost certainly be able to take out that mid tower. 116 being a little bit of a mosquito, as you said so adequately yesterday.
He's pretty behind in CS, and a lot of that is just because of the Shiv coming through a lot quicker. He should have it now on his next base. A lot of pressure put towards him. I think gold and mid is probably still relatively even. Obviously, a lot of Minji's gold is caught up in that deal blade. And, of course, the plate's picked up too. Now, beyond starting this up, it's good if they can start it before Minji can TP back, but I'm not sure they want this fight. We'll see if they find any poke or any damage beforehand.
There isn't a reasonably good ward for the Doctor available down on that bot side. Pretty deep in the bot lane. It looks like teleport committed from Minji at least, and he should have the static shiv, although we can't see the items. I did see it there on the player, on the champion.
Oh, they're TPing in their top
okay,
laner.
TP coming in. This dragon is very, very low. It's getting even lower, but it looks like it's going to be disengaged from Lava. Does manage to pick that one up. It's a kill already found here. Goes over to the support of J-Team, and now Bruce finally joining the fray. Pops that ultimate. Is going to be able to immediately take Kongwei out of this fight as Minji getting very, very low. But he flashes forward, does manage to find the kill, but costs his own life as well. And Bruce now picking up 2 for himself, looking to continue on, but the movement coming out of this Cassante gets him nice and safe, and Driver realizes Bruce is low on the mana, and it's like, nope, I'm having this. I'm the Doctor, and claims himself a blue buff.
He does. I'm really surprised that Beyond decided to commit so hard to this, because it feels like in this sort of fight, especially at this time of the game, the Poppy Tristana just brings so much more value than the LeBlanc and the Kha'Zix. We'll see it here. Kongwei, he tried to pick or at least chunk Bruce out on the side, but I'm pretty sure Bruce still managed to get a lot of DPS on this fight, and you really worry a bit because both of those champs, both the mid jungle from Beyond, they had such a big impact last game, and this game they're really not finding it. See there, it's really easy for Bruce, especially without the damage here from the LeBlanc to really threaten him. Betty took so much damage there. Did manage to get a kill for himself, and maybe that activates the Betty win condition. But I am quite liking J-Team's position right now.
Yeah, this is probably the worst Kai'Sa game we've seen out of Betty thus far. He did lose one, but he was doing very well in that game, and it was him getting caught out on a flank that lost it. But 1-2-2, definitely not I mean, you don't often see him negative, let alone 2 deaths negative.
He did get dived very early, and in that fight, feels like he was really just salvaging what was a bad fight. I think Beyond should have just given that up. Try and trade. let your LeBlanc and Kha'Zix get a bit stronger, because I think these early fights, you're just not going to perform the same.
Well, Minji has to be careful, though. Does he respect the lizard in the river?
The lizard.
Does not seem like it. There's going to be a Void Assault used here from the Kha'Zix. Might have to cost bust a shot. Flash forward, lands. Lakai.
Big.
Really nice skill shots there. Secures the kill. And that's important gold found onto the Kha'Zix.
It is a really nice pickup. I also think just denying Minji from farming, in this case by killing him, is really big, because during this time, 1116 will just be farming on the other side of the map. And a Shiv champion just farms so quickly, can take towers, can get ahead in levels, and that's really what you need. I think a LeBlanc that's in an even state with this build is pretty useless, but if you can accelerate, it's really nice. They will grab both this Herald and the bot tower, so a nice gold swing for them, and you almost feel like if they just hadn't contested that last drag, would actually be in a pretty favorable position now, but all things considered, gold is relatively even. Oh, we saw that Kongyue. I won't let him forget it. 2 drags to 0, though.
I remember last split, there was this one time where Kongyue like failed a flash over a wall as Wukong, and then failed his his clone over the wall too. That was a funny moment.
Happens to the best.
Some walls are more deceitful than others. And I must admit, the Baron wall often gets me when you're on that top side of it.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get over.
Okay, Driver grabs 1 tower, and that's J-Team's first tower of the game. A little farm to him, but the mid gold difference is probably pretty in the LeBlanc favor right now. It was also up a level. Doesn't have the Night Harvester yet, though, which is going to be a crucial pickup. Dragon only a minute and a half away. Needs to get these items sooner rather than later. Because you do think if you give J-Team this 3rd dragon, kind of like last game, you really leave it up to a 4th dragon flip.
I think I really like how Beyond have consistently been able to match 116 against Driver on the Jacks.
Yeah.
It's just meant that constantly he's finding a lot more gold, and Minji spending so much time trying to match, recalling, and then going out to the LeBlanc lane, because otherwise you do just fall behind in both your top and mid lane at the same time. Obviously, the proactivity there from Beyond to realize that, continuously do so in advance, has led really to what is a pretty significant mid lane advantage. Admittedly, Driver doing pretty well for himself up on the top side, found himself a 20 CS lead. Sort of evened out, though, a little bit on the basis that it is Lakai with an extra assist.
It is. I want to see if the LeBlanc can find value in the next fight, because this is going to be so important. You really don't want to give this one over, but you still feel like you kind of aren't strong enough. Might have the Night Harvester, is choosing to stay, so I think probably needs one more wave, or maybe just wants to make a pick onto that top side. They do have a Herald, so they can drop that to delay the dragon if they need for 1116 to pick up the item. But this is oftentimes where we see the weakness of the LeBlanc shown, where you need a fight, you need to contest this dragon, but you're still not at that point where you're even more impactful than Minji. Like, I'd say despite the lead, Minji might even be more impactful in the team fight. Wow, straight back into it.
Yeah.
15 seconds away now.
Kongyue in the mid lane, you have to expect that. Oh, he actually just gets his upgrade too.
Yeah, it's pretty important timing. They can just drop the Herald mid. I think if you're J-Team, though, just commit to this dragon.
Yeah.
Almost don't need to worry about the rest of the map for now. Securing the 3rd dragon will be so big.
And they're already on it. Bruce is very strong at this point.
1116 is recalling. I think they're going to try TP and play for the fight after. He cancels his base, so I guess doesn't have time. He TP's in.
Yeah, TP coming in from both solo laners here of J-Team, spreading out the side of Beyond pretty well. And now 116 does arrive over the side of the Baron Pit. Void Seeker goes wide, so will not get the reset on that cooldown. And it's still J-Team hitting away at this dragon. 116 over the wall, and the Magnet Storm used. It's going to be a very low health bar here from Lakai, who is getting so low. He does end up going down, and Bruce is going pretty fanatic here. Is looking to pick up another kill on the bot side there onto 1116, who looks like he might just live. But ultimately, it's a team fight win here for J-Team as they now turn their attention towards this 3rd dragon. It is the Mountain Dragon, and it should be theirs.
You see in that fight there, the LeBlanc was out-damaged by the Tristana, and while you can't maybe blame it all on him, I really feel like the pick is just so underwhelming. I think he now has the Night Harvester, but didn't have it in time for that fight, and that was so crucial. I think probably should have just based, and oh, he still doesn't have it actually, so must have been far away in terms of gold. But J-Team well in control at this point, and I think barring a incredible performance from Betty, it feels like they're just heavily favored to win it. We'll kind of see, once again, you know, the Dragon being forced very low means TPs come out early, and importantly, what poke does LeBlanc find before this fight? It's one auto that splashes onto 2 tanks. Not relevant whatsoever. And when it comes to just straight teamfight DPS, who does it favor? Of course, it's the team with 2 AD carries. And it is fights like this and games like this that make me just absolutely hate the LeBlanc pick. It does have potential. It is really strong if used well, but so often it's not. And this is the problem for sure. Third Dragon now goes to J Team, and while gold is even, 4-0 on Bruce, exactly where you want that gold.
Yeah, this Zeri is very scary. I don't even mean for that, but there you go. I will say, yesterday we saw a Zeri in a fairly similar situation up against the LeBlanc, and it didn't do too well. But I do have more faith here in Bruce to be able to get this game across the line. It does feel like he really is set up for success, being he is 4-0. Only need 1 Dragon now to secure that soul win condition.
TP comes out.
Yeah,
Can they look at him?
I don't know what the plan is here. It's going to be Lakai who gets grounded. They're still going forward. They're looking for Minji.
He doesn't have W, I don't think.
Oh, and the Keeper's Verdict will not connect, so Minji's certainly going to be going down. And now what can they find after this? It looks like Lauva was having a flash there over that wall. It's a 4v5, and this Baron is on the cards. Now Lakai's low, does not have ultimate available.
I think they have to do it, though.
They are, yeah. They're starting it up. There's a lot of damage coming through here from Betty on Lakai. So Lakai going over the wall, taking away that blast plant perhaps, but 116 as well. Trying to poke away, and Betty being left on the Baron. But now 4v5 does break out. Bruce is getting looked at by everyone, and he's just immediately taken out. But it's now Driver. The Doctor is in session, and there are so many low health bars. This should be just a cleanup. And despite what looked like a great start, it really is the Doctor who's having his way here with the entire side of Beyond. And the 4v5 comes out in favor of J-Team.
Crazy. Was just Dr. Ivor going insane on the Jax. Another kill there was picked up for the LeBlanc. Did have the Night Harvester for that fight, but even still, it didn't feel like much of a difference was made. Shojin picked up for Driver, and maybe after game 1, he decided that he does want something with a bit more carry potential. He's got it here. So I guess Minji must have W'd forward at some point. Yeah, so it's used here. 116 manages to kite that out. TP comes in, so all this is looking really good. They commit a lot, and they do manage to eventually get this pick onto Minji here. And you're thinking after this point that Beyond probably should do the Baron because they are pretty far behind, at least in terms of Dragons in this game. And if you can bring the side of J-Team to a 5v4, it would be really good. But, you know, Lakai is very low. Once again, the poke is pretty meaningless. They do find a nice pick onto Bruce here. You know, the Northern Assault comes through. It's followed up by everyone. But so much was committed for that, and now nothing left over for Driver. There was no flash for Betty, so couldn't go over the wall. And that was really all she wrote. You can see LeBlanc trying to poke away at the edge of this, but can't make a dent. It's going towards the Void third on 116, which is definitely interesting. So not going towards the Lichbane. Wants to be able to, I guess, deal with the Jax and the Poppy a bit more, but I'm not sure I like it.
Yeah,
you feel like you are just trying to poke out Tristan Zeri.
Yeah, it does a little bit feel like what's the point of the LeBlanc if you're not... I mean, not only the poking, but it means you lose a lot of tempo in those side lanes. You're not able to take the towers as quickly, which is really what a lot of this LeBlanc feels like it's about. The fact that you can pressure the side lanes so quickly, threaten towers, threaten inhibitors. Certainly doesn't feel like that's possible when you don't have the Void Staff. Kongwei, 1,500 assists.
Yep. He's got one this game.
It was Mission that hit it yesterday, right?
Yeah,
He
I
had
think
1,500
so.
as well.
Okay, 40 seconds on the 4th Dragon here, and I think BYG, they have to show us something special in this fight, because otherwise, I would expect J-Team to just run over this fight, and maybe they give it over and just try DPS down the Baron. They should have a lot of damage, but they're starting it on full vision, and this might be too early. Dragon's still 20 seconds away. This is very bold, and I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, they're off it. They're looking for the Doctor, who actually just jumps over the wall. He might be found. It's likely that he does end up going down, dodges out of that chain and continuing to leap strike on. But you see in the mid lane here, Driver's definitely dead. But what do they lose for it? Because at the moment, it looks like at least one tower might be going down. And if not, he's just trading his life for this Dragon. Jumps in, he's finding quite a lot of damage, but does go down. It's a shutdown. They lose the mid lane inner. They lose the Dragon's Soul. They might turn their attention towards this Baron, but the tempo feels like it's a little bit too slow. Driver wasted a lot of time there in that top side.
They will. They're going to try fight this. I think J-Team, I'm not sure they have to fight this, but maybe they're strong enough that they can. Okay, nice poke this time.
Yeah.
Found from 1116. That's very crucial. And I think J-Team will just give this one up. I think they can be okay with that. It's not the end of the world if you give over this Baron. You're still ahead. Although,
They
maybe
might
they'll
not
try
be
and
just,
fight. I don't think they
look
should.
like they are trying to. Driver does respawn in 10 seconds, does have teleport available, and that's going to be the Magnet Storm. It is Bruce who pops his eye. Lakai's looking at though, all outs him into the team, but no one's there to follow up, except Betty, who does go forward with that killer instinct. It's a 3v5 at least for
TP.
now, but the Doctor's coming in. It's a very, very nice keeper's verdict that locks up two of them. Lakai, you're in no man's land as Minji should be jumping over this wall and finding himself another kill in the game. It will be 3 Barons left over as... Oh, that was a good attempt. But Minji does find it at the end of the team fight.
You do, and I don't think that fight should have been that good for J-Team. I'm not sure we'll get a replay, but 1116 really misplayed. He dashes in, and at an angle that makes it so easy just to be CC'd up by the Poppy. LeBlanc dealing no damage in a team fight like that is pretty criminal, especially when you do have this build. All you really need to do is get off one auto, and then suddenly you get 500 damage. So beyond, they do manage to pick up the Baron, but unlikely to be able to do anything with it. Kongwei, he might look for a pick on the bot side.
Is he strong enough to do this,
I
though?
don't think so. Not into the Mountain Soul.
This is not game 1 Kazakhs.
Ooh. It's a lot of damage.
Is that your true opinion?
No. He's going towards a Lich Bane now, which feels kind of
Minji
weird.
does have to be careful. Now, he can absolutely be taken out, but the Steadfast Presence will secure almost a certain kill onto 116. The shutdown comes through, but nice stop on the jump there from Lakai. Will confirm at least one's traded back. And now it's a wet noodle fight as we have Lava versus Lakai. Enso and Bruce in the area as well as Kongwei. Keres flashes forward. He lands the hook onto Bruce. Follow up with that Nordal, but it's a fantastic Steadfast Presence. Locks up Betty, who will find a kill, and he's surviving on 1 HP. You do not give Kaiser to Betty. Betty does remain alive, and the team fight's going heavily there in favor of BYG. All that's left to do is drive her up on that top side, taking a tower. But beyond, managed to keep Betty alive, managed to take down 4, and the tower afterwards.
That, I don't know how they managed to find some kills there. It looked like it was doomed once 116 was caught there. But how good is Betty? I mean, he's continuing to DPS even when he has just a sliver of health. I mean, he gets hit by anything and he's gone. So I think it's looking really good here. I mean, there's a free kill pretty much, but don't quite have the damage. And the LeBlanc clone, that temporary invis actually makes a pretty big difference here. The turnaround comes through. It was Keres, I think, who really went big, though.
Huge hook.
Somehow finding this onto Bruce, it looks like it should just be easily blocked. And so I'm surprised he was dodging out from that. I think he should have just tanked it.
I even thought here that the Steadfast Presence means that the time is a lot harder for Betty, but it didn't matter.
Yeah.
He did stay alive. Look at his health. Even if there was a Thorn Mail anywhere, he would have gone
still
down.
going forward. That's my go. I say it every series with him in it, but that is my go. He's going towards the Void as well, which I think for him makes a lot more sense. A lot of these frontliners that he is hitting do have a lot of magic resist. Now, Lifesteal comes through for both AD carries, and I do wonder if LeBlanc is not that useful again.
Yeah, I also think it's important to note that now Driver has that hull breaker in the whatever side lane he goes to, which makes even the pushing for LeBlanc that much slower, which means the tempo on the side lanes shouldn't be that good, especially with Mountain Soul available as well.
Yep. 2 minutes away, and both objectives do spawn relatively similarly timed, but it is that Elder that will spawn first, and the DPS is high enough at this point that either team can just melt it in a few seconds, so I'd be surprised if anyone can trade the Baron for Elder here. Would it come down to a pick beforehand? They're going to put the LeBlanc up against the Jax, who can definitely clear the waves, but it's unlikely can make any headway, even with the Void. Feels like just too strong.
We go again. Driver versus the world. He has a hull breaker.
He doesn't take any damage.
Yeah. Now he is continuing on forward. He marches.
Yeah, they need Betty to deal with this guy. And even then, I'm not sure if that'll be enough. It feels like Driver, at least at this stage of the game, before that Void is completed on the Kaiser, is pretty much uncontested. I mean, look at that. Full combo from LeBlanc. Doesn't even touch him, even with a Void.
I like how Kongwei and Keres have just remained at the side but realized there's no chance they can take out Jax. So just slowly, as Jax pushes, they push back with him. We accelerate, you could say, and Nice tower damage. Wow. Okay, that is an insane amount of tower damage.
He can just tank it in front of the LeBlanc as well.
Yeah.
Pretty
While
crazy.
the teammates are all nearby. So I think Driver in a fairly commanding position here. Level 17 as well. Highest in the game alongside 1116.
I think I'm going to try and make a pick because it doesn't feel very easy.
Oh, wow.
J-Team in full control. Lakai, he's got a nice angle though. Is spotted out
He
there.
no longer does.
40 seconds on Elder, so something is going to have to go here. The dam will burst. Will they just go down mid? I think if you're beyond, you probably do have to keep at least one person on the sideline against Driver. Honestly, maybe even two. It's not very easy.
Oh, 116. Oh.
He's fine, though. A lot of damage taken. I think he will have to TP
Yeah,
back.
he's going to be pretty low after that bomb from Tristana.
Cancelled his recall.
Yeah, it gets even lower. Driver does recall, picks himself up. Bit of movement speed, bit of health. Headed towards what looks like it'll be a force of nature.
His TPing in now. Lich Bane completed.
All right, here we go.
Comes down to the straight 5v5, and I think that's something that J-Team should feel good about. Feels
long
like it's
as
going to have to be a
Bruce
big performance from
keeps him-
Betty.
Yeah, I think Bruce has to remain safe. Kongwei on the flank here. This is how the game ended last time. It was that Elder picked up into the game end. Bruce finding a bit of poke.
Oh.
Driver being looked at. It's the killer instinct, but Driver has flash. He gets himself away.
He's
it's a
very
big
far from the
cooldown.
fight, though.
He is indeed very far from the fight. He's actually recalling.
Ooh.
116 spots him out. Cops a bit of damage back, in fact, and really being rounded up, but it's going to be this Magnet Storm used. Minji jumps in, but immediately caught out. It's a 1-for-1 trade, and it's Betty going pretty insane here in the team fight. Bruce was eliminated, and Driver's now teleporting in to salvage the remains of this fight. He is very strong. He does have the hull breaker, but Betty is also alive and well. Does not have much mana. Driver's going to take one. Grandmaster's might used here, and he's trading. He's finding a lot of damage. Betty running forward, and he is completely out of mana. Driver going in. 1v3, gets the cleanse. He will be shut down. It's going to be Kongwei who picks that one up. They're going to follow up with the Elder Dragon for themselves too, and Bruce not finding a whole lot in these fights.
No, he isn't, and that was an 8,000 damage team fight from Betty, but I have to say, credit to 1116, managed to keep Driver out of that fight for so long. He chained him up on the side, took him for a walk, and then even stopped his base, and that's what allowed that fight to be a 5v4 for so long. Get a replay of it. Just keep your eyes really on the LeBlanc, not on your screen yet, though. Was a really nice angle found here by Kongwei just to threaten, but pay attention to this, because if Driver gets into this fight, you saw what happened to Betty. I mean, he can't really kill him, but just they engage on him early, forces flash out, and he's going to go for the base and TP, but 1116 realizes that if he can just keep him out by chasing, stopping the base, and so mobile, can't be caught, makes things just so difficult. And so this is just a pure 4v5 for so long, and they choose to engage.
Yeah.
J-Team, they go for it, and they're punished very heavily.
Yeah, Minji kind of feel like he griefed that fight a little
did.
bit. On a picture-in-picture, it was also Beyond who took the Baron. It is kind of just the prize of getting Elder Dragon. I think now, in favor of J-Team here, obviously, the fact that there were no dragons picked up from Beyond means the Elder Dragon lasts a significant amount of times. But I think the real prize ultimately is actually this Baron, because you don't have a whole lot of wave clear, and it was a good effort from Driver, as you saw on your screens at the end of that team fight, but too little, too late. 116 keeping out of that fight for just too long. And now with the Baron and with the Elder alive and well here on the side of Beyond, it's all about the base siege. Mountain Dragon, the only real answer to any of this. It is Betty who has that Elder Dragon soul, as well as 116 and Kongwei. Pretty much the three members you'd want it on. And it's going to be at least one inhib going down. What
Can
else can they
probably
get,
work
though?
on this next one,
Yeah, this should be
Especially
going
LeBlanc
down.
with the Lich Bane will just deal massive damage to that tower. Has the blue pot as well, so they're pretty committed to being aggressive with this. Will they go for bot, or are they going to play for the end? Ooh, do you want
okay.
that target?
You don't want Lalva at least, but it's 116 who just eliminates Bruce. Lalva goes down as well, and now it's all up to Driver, all up to Minji and Enso to try and defend this base, but Betty goes in with the killer instinct, gonna secure yet another kill, and the Elder Dragon buff is just too much as Beyond look to seal the deal here in game number 2.
They pick it up. And it feels like a lot of those later game fights were off the back of the LeBlanc. I mean, I have to say, I still hate it. It was useless for so long. But admittedly, when it finally does come online, it's extremely strong, right? It's those moments, really. That's why you're picking it, because it does just get so far ahead in farm. It remains such a pest in the side lane. And then finally, when it gets its items late game, it can poke, it can delay, and even burst at that point. And I think J-Team, they should have won that game in my mind, and I think they're probably pretty shaken after how that one went. So I think that, again, I feel like they're making things pretty hard for themselves in the draft. I think the Tristana priority is far too high, and I think giving over the Kai'Sa is a big issue. So I really hope those get cleaned up, because I think if you just put Minji on Azir, the game looks so much better.
Yeah, Chalk, I'm going to ask you. You're the coach, right? You're the J-Team coach,
eh?
all right?
Yeah.
You're the coach of J-Team. You're going into game number 2 draft, and you're like, ooh, Kai'Sa's open. And we're blue side.
Yeah.
Do you pick Tristana? Out of 10 games, how often do you pick the Tristana?
Never.
Yeah, you take the
We
Kai'Sa?
hate Tristana. Yeah, well, I think I don't know, it feels like the Trist is not really finding a lot of value, right? Minji is probably our best Tristana, and if even he is struggling to have impact with it, I think that says something.
Yep.
I also feel that Tristana is one of those champs that obviously is much better when snowballing, right? And naturally, it's a bit easier to snowball against teams that are weaker. And so beyond one of our top 3, perhaps even top 2 after this one team's here, it is going to be hard to play something that is somewhat less consistent than an Azir, or something that you know if this game goes a distance that you're going to have the impact. Because I feel like Tristana, while he could have played the fights better, right, you wouldn't say that he executed them super cleanly. I don't think it's super easy to play out those team fights either.
Yeah, I mean, that last one around the Elder felt the worst for me, where he just jumps in, gets immediately stunned up by Lakai, and is just one-shotted. And I want to say as well, we saw it again, Bruce, 4-0 on the Zeri. Didn't have any impact. He ended the game, I think, 4 and 5. So when you are that far ahead as the Zeri, especially in these team fights, you need to be finding something. And admittedly, 116 did a pretty good job in some of them to find him and chunk him out low, as well as Lakai and Kira's. It has to be
they did
stated
have his
that
number.
Kira's really did have, not Minji, sorry, Bruce's number this whole game, and made it very hard for him to play. But certainly, when you're heading into the next draft, you cannot give Betty Kai'Sa a third time, because ultimately, well, yes, quiet start for him. The impact he was having in those team fights was pretty insurmountable. I mean, even at the last one where he Killer Instincts onto Driver, chunks him out low, which forces Driver to back. There's no way he can then continue because of the damage that's come out. And then obviously gets stopped by 116, and it's just too late when Driver eventually gets there. But it's those things, the mobility Kai'Sa offers, the poke Kai'Sa offers, and just the amount of damage that Kai'Sa can put off very safely, as well as it's just higher numbers. The champ's just absurdly broken right now, and as blue side, you got to take it at blue 1. If you're not willing to, ban it.
I think so too. And, you know, especially when you look at that game, like you said, Bruce 4-0 on the Zeri feels like he should have been able to carry the game. And I think that is really the difference between the good AD carries and the elite ones, right? You look at someone like Cruscata or Bruce, they can still get ahead, but they're not as clean. They'll find, you know, maybe not as much damage, or they might get caught here and there. I really do think if you had given that 4-0 Zeri to the likes of Betty, to the likes of Wako, those elite 80 carries here in the PCS, that they would have been able to get that game over the finish line. And that's really tough, because naturally it's just the punishment, I guess, of having a weaker player, and there isn't much you can do about it. But something you could do about it is just drafting some of that carry potential away from Betty.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know I'm harping on about it, but it seems so absurd that we've seen Kai'Sa pretty much permanently banned or first picked on blue side, and now 2 games in a row, J-Team have just ignored the fact it existed. I mean,
Against the best Kai'Sa player as well.
Exactly. And I mean, they were so set up to win here. Obviously not in this fight, but they had the Mountain Soul. Everything was really going in their favor. It was this team fight that turned it around. I mean, it looked like it was just going to be J-Team's game until this specific fight.
Pretty much. I think 116 pretty much saved the game almost with this, because I think if this just becomes a straight up 5v5 when you're butting heads, surely it's J-Team that just massacre this team fight. But so much pressure found on the side, and while of course he's going to be able to heal and TP back, I'm very surprised. You know, of course, you know, Minji jumps in, it's not looking good, but I wonder how much of that is J-Team really feel forced to do something. You can see they're trying to force that engage, the flash forward from Enso, and you wonder why, because you need to wait for Driver's TP. So could have been a bit of miscommunication within the team, and maybe Driver wasn't vocal enough, or maybe they just weren't clear enough, I guess, on the plan. But just engaging that felt like they played into BYG's hands for sure.
And just look at how much Driver does here. He's 1v4 and he's still almost killing Betty. He kills Keres. If you had this guy at your fight, it's going to look a whole lot better. And I mean, the gold graph really does speak volumes here. It just fell off an absolute cliff at that Dragon fight we just saw. And I mean, the damage... Again,
I think the damage speaks more because LeBlanc, you're expecting, so many times you saw the LeBlanc poke and it's eaten by Mountain Soul or by the lifesteal. It's a lot of fake damage, but this Kai'Sa, like almost doubling Zeri's damage when Zeri's the one that started 4-0. And I remember you saying this was one of the weaker Kai'Sa games we've seen. Betty started 1-2-2, got dived early, got, killed in that early fight. And to just come out and just almost double the enemy AD's damage, he was just built different.
Yeah. And the Champers. I don't know.
But Betty wins that game on Zeri, I promise you.
I think you mean if the exact draft was swapped over?
Swapped.
Yeah, probably.
Even if they swap players, I promise you Betty wins that game.
Yeah, probably. Betty is pretty crazy as an AD carry. But I think ultimately, I mean, we saw in that last team fight, I think a big mistake from Minji. He does get the 1-for-1 trade, but when you're trading the Tristana for the Cassante, that feels very, very good for the side of Beyond. And especially, as you touched on, they just forced so hard without Driver, who ultimately at that stage of the game really felt like he was actually the carry because he was something like 6-1 and I can't remember the exact scoreline, but he had so much of the gold. And I think this is also deserved here that 5-on-6 picks it up. Very quiet start to the game, but that last team fight pretty much saved the game, as you touched on.
Yeah, I think so too. I do have to say, still LeBlanc, Shiv hater, still think the pick was mostly useless late game, but he completely 1v9 that last team fight. So I would give it to him just for that. And this actually, I think, was one of the team fights. No, it wasn't this one. There was one where he got shoved against the wall, or it could have been this one.
I don't remember.
No, I think this was when
they catch Bruce.
Yeah, this was a nice pick, admittedly. And I think having the Kai'Sa to follow up makes a big difference because a lot of that damage did just come from the Kai'Sa as well.
It almost feels like if you're opting into the Zeri, maybe you should just take the Nautilus instead of the Ral.
Yeah, I could maybe see that.
Because there wasn't really much to go on to the Zeri there, if not for the Nautilus ult setting up a lot of it. And I mean, we saw it a lot, even the hooks landing there from Keres catching out Bruce at times, but it really was just an absolute display from Beyond in the late game there to be able to pick up that win from what seemed like an inevitable loss.
I think so too, and I think the manner in which they won that game too, just not a reverse sweep in the series, but almost a reverse sweep of the game, right?
Yeah.
Down all those dragons and still turning it around. I think that really messes with mental of teams, and so I think it would require a pretty heroic, turnaround in the mental side of things for J-Team to now come up and show a really good game, because I think BYG might just 3-0.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at this stage, it definitely feels like Beyond are winning the mental game, but the series is certainly not over. If we know anything about the PCS, there's a lot of reverse sweeps, so come back after the break to see if J-Team can claw their way back into the series. And we're back. It's game number 3 now on the cards, and match point in favor of Beyond coming up. And I think, again, I've harped on about it this entire day, but Kai'Sa has to either be banned or taken away. And we said before the break, in fact, you did it, well, during the break, sorry, that it almost feels like, as the side of J-Team, you probably have to ban the Kai'Sa, and I'll let you explain why.
I think so. For me, I think if you first pick the Kai'Sa, you're almost definitely going to verse Betty Zeri, and I think Betty Zeri it's almost on the level of his Kai'Sa, right? Any one of those super hyper carry champs, he is really, really good at. So I think it might have been better for the side of J-Team to just take red, ban the Kai'Sa, and then try last pick top. But I do think we got word that they chose the blue side.
Yeah, they did.
So they are running it back, and it's hard to say, right? Because I think there are definitely things they could do in blue side to fix it up. And I think gameplay-wise, they actually played that game pretty well. Unfortunately, there was some, issues maybe from Minji in the mid lane, but, it happens. And I think they could, at least if they played most of the games like that, there is a potential that they could turn the series around. But I am a little worried for them just because a lot of teams, when they go down 0-2, they will change everything up, and then suddenly, there might be a reverse sweep. Some teams will kind of buckle under the pressure and, really struggle to recover from that. So we'll have to find out what sort of team J-Team is. I think that most teams in the PCS seem to be able to go for reverse sweeps, right? We saw a lot last split, so I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But I think especially the way they lost the last game, it really hurts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they were in such a commanding lead for the entirety of that game, and it was really just the one major mistake around that Elder Dragon that sealed the deal. It was literally them winning until Elder Dragon was taken, Baron was taken, and the game ended. So I feel like if you clean up that one mistake, they probably do end up winning the game, but ultimately it does feel like you just don't want to really give over the Kai'Sa. I will say I don't think the LeBlanc was actually that much of an issue because, while yes, 116 did pick up the MVP and he played that one fight in particular very well, it feels like for almost the entirety of the game, he was a bit of a non-factor. He wasn't finding anything in the side lanes, wasn't finding anything in the fights. And again, it was just that one fight where Enzo flashes forward, Driver wasn't there, they end up losing everything. And I expect J-Team to be able to bounce back from it, but we'll have to see. I mean, a lot comes down to this draft phase yet again, and we always do say it as we head now into that draft phase. It is the Nico, everything's staying the same so far. Annie, the next ban.
Yeah, okay, so that's instead of the Jace. I wonder if it will just be the LeBlanc or the Kai'Sa as that last ban. I think, ban LeBlanc, take Kai'Sa, seems fine to me, but we'll see what they do. I might even prefer just ban the Kai'Sa and give over the LeBlanc, because it really didn't feel, at least for the majority of the game, like it was a big issue. Where are they going to go, though? Okay, so they ban away the LeBlanc. I think that for mid bans, or like banning those away, I think that is the best thing you can do almost to shut down 116, because I do think now he has to go towards something like the Ahri, or if he does pick up the likes of the Jace or the Trist, I think you're very happy with that. Now, do you first pick the Kai'Sa is the question.
I think you have to.
Well, what else would you first pick? Because it could be the Trist again, but I think I would kind of hate it.
Oh, here we go
I feel
again.
like 116, something like Ahri is a lot. You don't get outscaled as hard by the likes of Trist compared to Azir or something, right? Because ultra late game, it is just really hard. Now, they do lock in the Jace with the Kai'Sa. So
this
116,
is gross.
He hasn't been as good on the Jace, but Jace Kai'Sa, especially Betty's Kai'Sa, it seems like a slam dunk for BYG. Now, I guess they don't even really have to find AP. Like, if they can, a little bit of off AP, it might be nice, but they really don't need it.
Yeah, they've got Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa will be building AP. I mean, what else would you really want? The junglers don't really open up to AP picks. Now, admittedly, you have the Jace mid, so maybe it is Kongwei looking towards the likes of that Lilia again, which didn't look like one of his stronger champions, but, I mean, we'll have to see. Poppy being locked in again. It looks like J-Team, for now, throwing it back to the exact same draft. I mean, if Jax is locked in here, in fact, will be.
I'm not sure how I feel about it. I feel like popping into 2 poke champs, not the best. I think having more engage is good. Something like the Vi, I wouldn't even hate, as long as you can get some AP to go along with it, because it feels like you do just need a way to go forward early. Otherwise, you can be in trouble. The Zeri is picked up. We'll get to see Bruce on it again. Had a great start, but not a great finish. What gets picked alongside this here? Because you can just take a jungle. Could take top into bans. Obviously, taking the support into bans works as well.
I almost feel like you just lock in the Nautilus. It did so well last game. Although, Lakai might opt into trying to get this Jax, and I feel like you are banning Gragas now.
I think you ban Gragas for sure. Rumble's already gone. Do you put 2 bans? I'm trying to think what else would be annoying.
I don't think you have to worry about a second ban. I think taking Gragas away feels like the only thing you really need to do.
It would take away Engage as well. Maybe you ban Gragas and then ban a support or something.
Yeah. I mean,
Surely the
maybe
Gragas
even Gragas Rakan. Rakan
Yeah.
can offer a lot, pretty much round out any team
Kennen.
fight. See, Kennen, I understand it's annoying, but it feels like as soon as you get Mercs on the Jax,
Yeah.
you have a completely fine lane.
Yeah, I don't mind the Kennen ban as long as they still ban the Gragas.
Yeah.
And they have to, right? Because Lukai must be very aware, unless he wants to try the proxy strat. But even then, I feel like it's just safer to ban it away because it's more engaged that you don't want to give over to J-Team. Nautilus is that response ban. And now, eyes, of course, on this last ban here. I really hope it's the Gragas. Don't ego it. Not when you're up 2-0. Just take it home.
They've got a pretty slam dunk draft thus far. So we'll have to see. Is it going to be the Gragas? Time running out now. Gangplank.
Ooh,
Okay. Well,
risky.
admittedly, Driver has picked Gangplank into the
Yeah.
Jax before, but they do need AP at the moment. And Gragas is open, and Driver is very good at Gragas.
Yep.
Do you take it as a support? Maybe there's some like tomfoolery to be had.
They could. I was thinking, what if 1% chance Jax goes jungle?
I called it.
Oh, tomfoolery indeed. Now, okay, this is probably Gragas jungle, I would say, rather than support,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Kongyue
Because
does play
has played it
Gragas.
before, so they do take it away. And it's clear they've really thought about the Jax pick, right? They've
Yeah.
tried to think about what do we need to ban, what do we need to pick away. And I really, really like the Gragas here because Gragas is one of those unique champs that functions as both engage and disengage. You can do both very, very well. So I think this is just a smurf draft from Beyond so far. I mean, clearly have read J-Team like a book here. What are they going to go for?
Yeah, this is the most important pick, I think, of the draft. Okay.
I mean, I like it. It's carry potential.
There is almost zero magic damage, excluding a little bit coming out of Minji. But admittedly, there's not a whole lot of tankiness coming through the other side, more or less just some
I mean,
off-tank.
Zeri can just go full AP if needed.
Yeah, true. What if it is just Bruce on the
Trist.
Trist and the Minji AP Zeri mid
Ooh,
again?
it could be.
Because we have seen him play AP
Was
Zeri
it
once.
into Jace? It might have been.
I think it was,
Yeah, I
and he
think it
did an
was.
incredible job as that Zeri.
Okay, last pick.
Ooh.
You really don't need engage if you don't want it. You can
No.
just pick. I've obviously
Yeah,
having
Kira's-
engage. You never say no to carriers on the rel.
No. Okay.
I want to see, is that Zeri going mid?
I mean, probably not, but I almost would prefer it in many ways, just because it does round out your damage more. Obviously, might do a little bit worse early on against the Jace than the Tristana would, but it does look like we are just going to have the traditional lanes for those two champions.
Yeah. I think J-Team's draft, I think BYG's draft is so good.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like Exodia has been picked up here from Beyond. Maybe the only substitute to have like the absolute best draft on the patch would have Maokai instead of the Gragas, but even then it's like, that is such a minuscule upgrade that it doesn't really matter. Now,
Yeah.
admittedly, J-Team have ways to win. The Renekton should
They
be
do.
doing pretty well on his top side, and you can pair it pretty well with Poppy to look for dives. And admittedly, Driver has been pretty good at finding dives onto Lakai's Jax in the past, so that's definitely a way you can look into. Minji hasn't had the worst series on the Tristana. He's actually looked pretty good for the most part, but some critical mistakes last game leads you to believe that maybe there's a little bit of jitters coming into the playoffs for him. Obviously didn't make it to playoffs in the spring split, so haven't seen him for a while, and I don't know. It's hard to bet against Beyond, especially on the form they've been in the past two games. Now, I will say 116 doesn't seem to be as good at these AD mids as he is at the facilitatory mids. So maybe it's an avenue they can exploit there too. But we have, once again, Betty on Kai'Sa, Kira's on Rel, and it's very difficult to bet against that.
Yeah. Really feels like they basically just got not only perhaps their best champs, but also just the strongest champs available. I really do think that BYG should clean this one up, but if there is a way for J-Team to win, I think they have a lot of early game potential, especially around the top side. Tristana, Poppy, and Renekton, unlikely to lose any early skirmish. That could be their place to work from. I will be interested to see if Bruce does go for more AP after his Shiv, or if he's just going to commit to the normal build.
I doubt it. There's
Yeah.
not really any straight tanks. There's just more
Yeah.
off tanks coming through.
Especially not Kongyue's Gragas. He
Yeah.
will not build tank.
That's right.
He's got first strike treasure hunter. I love that.
Goes trying to get himself some gold. And as you touched on in the draft phase too, pretty impressive beyond doing their homework, realizing how to play this draft pretty much to perfection, leaving open that Gragas, banning the gangplank, which is something that Driver likes, into the Jax, picking up the Gragas immediately out of those bans.
Yeah.
I think actually,
Oh, you go.
that's actually a pretty big deal that Driver misses that Q, but the minions
He
aren't
doesn't get
here.
the bone plating, or does he take second wind?
Jax usually takes second wind in the matchup, but it is still nice. It gives you some fury as well as just... He will have it available back before the minions are here, but it is nice because you do lose that level 1 as the Renekton generally.
I was going to say before that, you speak of BYG doing the homework, but how crazy is it that they're the team that, in theory, got scouted, right? They had to show stuff. Admittedly, not a whole lot up against Bliss, but they did have to show some picks. And I think it's also, later into the split, they had a very clear playstyle. So J-Team had all the time in the world to download the information, and yet they still give over Kai'Sa 3 times in a row.
Yeah, that feels a bit weird.
Yeah,
but
it feels like they have looked to heavily target 1116 as the kind of person who gets things started for the team, and I think that's fair, and those are good bans. But I think also you've got to consider that Keres is another big enabler, and as long as someone is getting Betty and Kongyue ahead, they will take it home from there.
Definitely. And so far, obviously, with the 2-0 scoreline they currently have, it's been happening. Driver with push up on this top side. Now, minions reaching Lakai's tower does make it a little bit harder for the Renekton, but ultimately will be fine. Not a whole lot of trades, though, happening across the rift, although Minji, as I say, that does jump forward with that rocket jump, gets that satchel onto 1116, and it's a decent trade there. I think all things considered. Again, Minji should be pretty favored in this matchup, has been better than 1116 on these AD mids. And you're seeing it in the early stages.
Yep. We did see this matchup, I believe it was yesterday, Missions Jace up against Kize's Tristana, and normally, at least in the PCS, we've seen Triss being the one that kind of gets advantage early, and then once Jace picks up the Dirk, especially once Jace completes the first item, it starts to go the other way. We'll have to see how it goes here. Because yesterday, at least, Jace was kind of winning all game long. Could just be the mission effect, as of course very good in the laning phase. Kongyue maybe looking for something mid. They can use the Jace E to cancel the rocket jump.
Oh, he's slurping up his drink. Minji holding it. Is going to just get absolutely comboed. First blood. That was played to perfection.
Yeah, that was so nice.
Wow.
How good are BYG?
Yeah, they're crazy. BYG in the summer playoffs. I believe they made it to Worlds last time. Looking to do so once again. Lalva, though, coming to this mid lane isn't anything for him to find. Maybe was just trying to see if he could stop that recall. Won't be able to do so. But this is going to shake up that mid matchup a fairly substantial amount. Minji holding on to that flash.
He probably just thought he was safe, maybe just thought this was a trade coming out in the 1v1. Because if it is just a 1v1, he's completely fine. But by the time it's committed, he is just dead to rights. Doesn't have the opportunity to flash. So really well played there from BYG. Kongyue clearly happy with the outcome. Got himself the first blood. And now has an alternator.
His treasure hunter.
Yeah, big money.
First strike treasure hunter. Guy's got stocks.
Top lane, Driver is getting some good trades. A lot of the time we see Renekton just winning out early. It does feel like it takes quite a lot of time for Jax to be the one turning this matchup around. And for the Herald especially, Renekton going to be a lot stronger. Which could be a big deal, especially when you've got a Tristan on your team. I believe J-Team, they got both neutrals last game, and admittedly did get the Dragon Soul off it, but didn't get the win.
Yeah, they got pretty much everything, except the Elder Dragon and the Baron. Which, yeah, you'd argue are the most important two objectives, but sometimes the Soul can be.
The Nexus too.
True, that gives 50 gold.
It's a big lead. Resets will come out. Nice little sidestep there. Dragon is alive. That will cancel Enzo's base, so he's probably going to stay on the map, or will he go? He's going to reset again. But this is a much better start to the Kai'Sa Zeri matchup than before. You saw that Bruce, I think about this time last game, was 20 CS up and 1-0-1. Now is actually slightly behind. And it should be Betty in a much better position to carry a game that you feel like BYG have the better draft and have the better start.
Yep. Lalva not having a great time in his jungle. You see Minji jumping forward. This guy's pretty ruthless.
Damage does go wide there. They are going to shove this wave, and I would be pretty surprised to see J-Team try and start up the Dragon. I think you do want to just play towards the Renekton on the top side. If you're BYG, I think you just give the Herald and you try and play to deny Bruce on bot side. Because I think if you can get Betty more plates, if you can deny Bruce more gold, especially when you have a very low chance of winning that Herald fight anyway, it should look really, really good. Kongwei, he spent a lot of time around mid, so just ensuring that the priority is there. Lakai is starting to fall behind, but has a pretty big wave to collect, so not as behind as it appears. Still, though, it is a sizable lead for Driver, who even still has his TP, and Lakai does not. So perhaps just getting outlaned here. Part of it is, of course, the strength of the Renekton early, but...
Gonna give himself a plate.
Yeah. I really think, especially with how top lane is going, BYG really should just give up this Herald and try trading the bot side. I think if you can take away that second red, grab the Dragon, and dive or just push Bruce off the bot tower, that just feels so, so good.
Have a pause.
Looks like a Kongwei audio issue.
Kongwei can't hear the screams of his enemies. Gonna have to get that sorted out.
Could be. He's a bit of a savage, that guy.
He is. This guy repulses tank junglers. Even when he was put onto Maokai duty, it was first strike, entirely AP. This guy's pretty base as a jungler.
He is.
It's unfortunate that he picked jungle to be his role.
True. He does like Scuttle Crabs a bit too much for my liking, but everyone has a vice.
That's right. And I mean, all things considered, I think the game remains fairly even. Obviously, Minji going down for first blood gives Kongwei a pretty nice head start, but Driver's doing well in his lane, and bot lane's remaining relatively even. And I have to admit, there's a little bit less threat onto Bruce in terms of just straight up damage, although coming back to the game, it is 1116 who's being looked at, and Minji picking himself up a kill. Really nice find there from Lalva. Just straight flashing over the wall, securing that kill. Obviously punishing that flash, being down from 116.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. Especially ahead of this Herald is going to mean that they're even stronger for that. Kongwei will pick up that wave mid. So that gold isn't going to go to waste. But yeah, just really punishing the lack of flash from the J. Still has the Dirk, though. So can be a credible threat. I think with how strong the Renekton is, though, that it is going to be hard. We'll see, because the way Kongwei is pathing right now...
Ooh, sixes for both 80 carries.
Yeah. Not going to go for it. I really do want to see Beyond just commit to playing for the bot side. We'll see what happens in 1116. I think it is just a flash over the wall. Even though he has the ward on it, admittedly, it's pretty hard to respect this gank angle because straight up, you just don't really expect it. But he doesn't have a lot of mana. Of course, does not have the flash. I think now probably should have walked away, but I guess it was kind of too late. And that's a kill picked up from Minji. Maybe this can be the game he turns his Tristana performance around.
Ooh, okay. Herald started. It's actually Kongwei on the top side. Looks like... Yeah, and that's a massive
maybe
trade.
now they can contest, because I think with the Renekton strength should be hard, but if mid is chunked out this hard and they have the priority, maybe there's a chance, especially if Driver can't get to this in time. Lakai is not going to be able to move. He's stuck on a tower. Okay, so Kongwei now will commit to the bot side. I wonder if it's too late, though, because they probably should have known this a long time ago. You could already be on that second red, and you could already be looking to punish Bruce on the bot side. Looks like they're just going to take away the Dragon instead. So better than nothing, but maybe not as much as you would have liked.
Definitely not. Now, we'll see where this is placed. Honestly, feels like top might not even be the worst decision, simply because there is already a plate taken.
Yeah,
Driver
Lakai just TP'd as well.
Yeah, Driver has a lead, and they might even just look to dive here. There is ults available.
They've got Enso up here as well. Lakai's in big trouble, and if he goes down, that top tower, especially with the Herald, might go along with him.
This is very bad for Lakai. He goes forward and commits that counter-strike as well, and Driver immediately pouncing on him, using that dominance, and Lakai now without counter-strike and without really any way out. He does flash, but it's just too little too late. He's going to go down. Driver picking up that one. There is the Herald available. 3 plates remaining on this top tower. Is Lalva going to use it? Looks like he's not, which I guess makes sense because Kyrgios did find a roam timing up here to defend it, but again, huge lead here for Driver, who is finding himself almost 30 CS ahead.
He is really, really strong now, and I do worry a bit for Lakai in this game because I think while he does scale pretty well into the double 80 carry comp, starting this far behind is not what you'd wanted. And especially with that top gold difference, that's really what leads to the team gold gap too.
Yeah, and it's surprising, right? Because Lakai at this stage has played so much Jax, and Jax Renekton is probably the most common matchup there is in the top lane at the moment. And the fact he's found himself this far behind is definitely a concern. And Driver really put himself in a position to carry this game once again. Obviously, we saw yesterday BioPanthers Renekton pretty much 1v9ing a game, getting Chiefs across the line for their win. See if Driver can do much the same.
I think he is going to have to. Because the rest of Beyond are off to a pretty good start.
Bruce just yoinked Lalva's red.
We eat those. 116, he's getting the prior, doesn't have his first item yet. Isn't matched here from the shiv from Minji either, but Gore Drinker on Driver. Forced to be reckoned with. Definitely don't want to take any fights near him if you're Beyond. Lakai will trade back one playing the top side, but still going to be pretty far away from item. Night Harvester comes through for Kongyue.
Yeah, that's an early Night Harvester. Admittedly, a very early Gore Drinker as well. Should be gold very heavily in favor of this Renekton. Now, Rift Shield used mid. Is Minji going to be able to get this gold? It doesn't look like it, so that gold should be going solely over to the Poppy. Certainly not where you want it to be, but admittedly, the health damage onto that mid tower, very important.
That is nice. Now, I think unlikely to see any fights until these neutrals come back up, but it really is going to be difficult for Beyond. I think they probably can get the second drag while Driver doesn't have TP. But any fight with Driver in it, I think, just should be an absolute wash right now. He's just way too strong. I mean, look at the top difference right now. Upper level, about to just take a tower in front of him and up so much CS too. Lakai is just, he is so far away from being useful.
Yeah. Now, Shock, I want you to look at Betty's items and tell me how useful does the Biscuit rune seem in this game?
He's got max mana if he sells them. Yeah, no, biscuits, they're definitely a bait.
Cosmic Insight is heavily overlooked a lot of the time.
Does he not have? Oh, no, he has Boots Biscuits, yeah.
Oh,
Lakai.
coming top and Dominus popped. It is traded for that Jax ult, but Kongyue's in the area. Driver might just find himself dead here. Although it is very strong, it has to be said, Kongyue, no slouch in his own right. Explosive cask, nice flash from Driver, secures his safety. Very important that he wasn't going down there.
I think that was misplayed, though. I think Beyond should have been able to get that kill there. I mean, they have a lot of flashes they could invest, and they didn't end up doing it, so Drive ultimately ends up walking away. Did lose the flash, but so much is lost on the rest of the map as Betty forced away from that tower, loses some plates, and a mid plate picked up too. J-Team, they're in the bot side. A fight here without Driver might not be what they want,
Yeah,
though.
Bruce popping the ult as well as Enso, but it's Kyrie's with that Magnet Storm locking Bruce down for the time being, and Kongyue in the area does not have ult available, but feels like he is so strong, being that he has that first item completed. Bruce being left alive, nice steadfast presence to deny the engage from Kongyue. Body slam stop, Bruce tries to channel the recall, and it's Betty who flashes forward, gets the last hit, explosive barrel, and the snipe from 116. It's 2 kills found from nowhere for Beyond.
J-Team overreached, but now the croc on the top is here.
It is going to be a very nice knock-up found from Lalva, and Driver has arrived. They're trying to finish off Betty. They will do so. Minji gets himself out. There is no Dominus available, though, so this Croc isn't as potentially strong as he could have been. He's getting CC'd up a lot, but he does have access to that empowered Q to get himself some nice health back. Turns around, Gold Drinker procced, and it's going to be this counter-strike coming out of Lakai, who's going to have to back away. Driver almost has Dominus. It's, in fact, back up as we speak, and he is marching forward. This man is accelerating. He's going in, and he absolutely slaps down Kyrie's there with the empowered W, and we have a Croc problem.
We do. I think this is Driver against the world right now. Minji did pick up some kills. Of course, it is a nice pickup, and maybe they can get the tower off the back of this as well. Looks like they will. Don't think Kongyue will be able to clear this one out. Gives that up. So more gold going into those J-Team solo laners, and they're going to have to try bring this one over the line. Let's get a look at this. J-Team, I think we're way too aggressive here on the bot side. Have definitely overstayed their welcome and probably don't win 4v4s. I think fights without Renekton at this point don't look too good, especially with those mythics completed for the Beyond mid jungle, the Duskblade and the Night Harvester both. And so this fight obviously started out really good for Beyond. You can see a lot of damage coming through, and Betty somehow finding this kill onto Bruce was really big, but not sure how long the replay will go on for. They ended up overstaying their welcome with that Renekton coming down. Nice shock blast there. Did take him out as we head back to live. So Lakai did manage to get back at least a little bit of that CS deficit in the meantime, but it's still a very long time from being a credible threat. Mid lane CS, though, still really favored towards 1116, and I think a lot of that is Minji just overextending on the roam, right? Spending a lot of time grouped up with his team and not as much in that isolated lane, whereas the Jace oftentimes is cleaning up that wave, pushing another, and then moving.
I think interesting to note, oftentimes now we see the Kraken first for Tristana up against the Jace, but this game, Minji opting into their static shiv will mean the side lanes are a lot better for him, and it should keep Jace away from poking before objectives a little bit more than otherwise. This is an interesting thing to note.
How it started, I think wise from Beyond to give this one over, especially with the Renekton TP. I think at this point, your goal should pretty much just be to try and get more items. I think if you can get 3 items, Jace, Kai'Sa, and maybe a bit strong on your Jax, at that point you have a very solid chance of winning fights up against the Renekton. But right now, Dr. Ivor is just the king of the Rift, and you can't mess with him. Although they might bring 4 members down to mess with him. There is a TP on Minji.
Oh, he's denying the minion wave from getting in. He's going to have to pop Dominus. He's actually just... We saw this last game. Deny as much time as possible. He's going to not be able to deny all that much, though. Gore Drinker will not be up. Does go down. And it's Betty on this Kai'Sa who picks it up. In the meantime, they are picking up at least a tower for their troubles mid. And looking on 116, who just used the teleport. He's getting stunned up, but does manage to find a way to flash out. And now Kongyue has arrived. And this is now a firing range. 116 being the benefactor of both of those kills. And now Beyond finding themselves a pretty happy place in this game, although things happening everywhere. Minji now on the top side, finding a bit of damage on this top lane tower, as Kongyue once more is trying to find an angle.
Minji no flash. He might not be out.
He might not be. Enso's in the area and might just have to try and find a way to help Minji, but it doesn't look like it's possible. Minji, you are not long for the world. Buster shot will delay his death, but not for that long, as all the CC comes down and another shutdown onto Betty's Kai'Sa.
And 2 shutdowns onto Betty's Kai'Sa. That feels just criminal at this point. And while gold lead, it only slightly favors Beyond, I'm really liking their chances now. They're going to accelerate their carry so much. So in the meantime, while that play was going on to Driver 116, he's doing a good job to play pretty safe and try to clear this out. And I think it's so crucial that he manages to survive, because if he does go down for free, they probably do lose more towers, and I don't think there'll be any chase after that. But staying alive, for Kongyue to come up and just send them here, that water does so much damage. And yeah, they're so happy. They know how big a win that is, the Beyond coaching staff. Just look at the carry items now. That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, Betty really being the benefactor of a couple of misplays, really, around the Rift there by J-Team. Now, admittedly, Driver, still very strong. Has his 2 items spike, and it is just ahead of both the Baron spawning and the second Dragon for either team, which could be a talking point. I think at this stage, maybe you'd even still favor J-Team to win the fights. But the acceleration coming forward onto Betty may not mean that that's true. Although here we see another fight breaking out. It is going to be an immediate kill found from Bruce. It's a shutdown onto 116, and now they're trying to run away. Wall bang from Lava, knock up follows it. Minji picking up that one, and there is 46 seconds until this Baron's up, so it won't be able to come through, but maybe just looking at this top lane in a tower.
Yep, they got that shutdown. Not too sure who the J shutdown went to, but if it went
to Bruce.
Okay, so that's pretty big pickup. Driver did TP into that fight, though, and having no TP could be a bit problematic. I think the rest of Beyond know that they can continue to fight on that other side. And while Beyond might give a kill back here and there, I think as long as Betty doesn't die and continues farming, it still feels like the Betty condition well and truly online. Down 2,000 gold, but you don't feel like it's the end of the world at this point. Lakai will start getting strong soon, I think, even despite his Misplays in the early game. Double Navori here, though, for J-Team. So I think at this, Dragon and Baron in particular, J-Team should be stronger, especially with the Renekton grouped. And I think if you're Beyond, just try and delay. Giving over a Dragon would be fine. Giving over a Baron, though, would not. And I wouldn't be surprised if J-Team try and force. But maybe with Kongyue, Jace, and the Kai'Sa, that's a lot of poke. Do you want to start it up against that? I don't think you can.
Oh my god, Bruce is almost dead.
Yep, the poke is just too much. If they can force a fight, though, it would be good for J-Team, but the poke...
Bruce has to recall. He's too low, and you can't do this.
No.
This is just a great... Driver's just permanently in dominance. He's so dominating, he's just always in dominance on our screens.
I think this is good for Beyond, though. Just keep delaying this. Is that bugged? It must be,
It is. But maybe it's just the effect, the driver effect.
It could be. He runs the rift. Okay, so Dragon not looked at. I think J-Team can go to it. I think Beyond can probably just give it up, maybe trade the top tier one. Once they get those 3 items, though, coming in on their carries, I think will be well and truly online.
Even Lava taking a non-laughable amount of damage from a non-empowered Jace Q.
Yeah.
And they're building a lot of MR, which feels like they're just trying to answer the fact that Betty got a bunch of shutdowns, but 116 is very scary. And he's going to be even scarier once that 3rd item comes through. And look at the damage being dealt.
Yeah. Now they have the potential to start up the Baron here, just in the 4v4, because they know Renekton does not have TP. And if they could just bait a 4v4 fight, they could maybe win it. At the same time, they probably don't need to risk it. I think they can slow down the game, but it's Beyond. They're going to risk it.
Yep, Kongyue slurping up a bit of his drink, and good timing on that Oracle lens. Scrying Orb, I believe, actually. Does spot out that it was started, and so they do get off it immediately.
Driving now around.
Yeah, it looks like they're going forward. Bruce!
Oh, he alters.
That was very, very scary. Lakai was prepping that counter-strike, but now Zeri without ult isn't the team fight threat that Zeri with ult can be. And with that cooldown down, it is now this Baron being started up. It's very hard to face check. No one really can tank up the poke. Maybe Driver having a bit more sustain than the rest. And they saw Lakai jumping over that pit. They know he's in there. Staying nice and safe. These Void Seekers, though, continuing to hurl down from up above.
This back and forth is so good for Beyond. I think if no objectives are taken and the game continues to stall out, especially if Driver is not making any headway, whether that be in the side lane or in team fights, that's so, so good. Even got his recall cancelled there, which is, of course, really annoying, as that gives more chances for poke to land.
He does have teleport now, though, so it does make this Baron a little bit more scary because that teleport allows for potential flanks. And really, I think at this stage, you kind of have to look for a flank, try and find an angle to find this Jace, to find this Kai'Sa, to stop them from landing all the poke. And Driver, he really is the only person that can walk in and try and take down these wards. Everyone else has taken just too much damage, being that they are such low level.
3 items on the Jace. Has the Serylda's very important spike.
Oh.
Ouch. Wait, Bruce.
Oh, no. Oh, no, Bruce, you're in trouble. Okay, Kerez goes a bit wide there, but Betty does come in. Killer Instinct does manage to find the kill there as Enzo proxy ult. Driver flashes forward, does find the stun, and Betty solo busts the shot. Minji has hit everyone away, but it's still Driver in the middle of 4. He's healing up, he's trying to do what he can, but it's not enough. And now it's going to be another team fight won there by Beyond. That busted shot almost sealing the deal for their own team.
I think he saved them. That was a fight that maybe J-Team could have won with the scuffed engage from Kerez. Oh, and so he's going to limp away. But now Beyond in full control. They're going to get this Baron. They can probably reset and take the Dragon as well. I really hope we do get a replay of that, because that was an insane fight. One that could have really gone either way. Just missed execution, I think, on both sides. But Beyond, they're ahead. Let's see it. So initially, this starts off with big poke landed from the 3-item Jace onto Bruce. It's followed up by Betty. I think Betty wouldn't need to commit his flash if this engage were better, but has to ult in and immediately flash out. But then, you're thinking, okay, Betty has nothing. He's stuck in the corner. But Minji, he thought he could burst him, sends them all away. Flashes after, just into his death, really. And it was a really nice flash thing from 116 here. Dodged the Poppy E, just barely. Or maybe it hit Lakai, I can't even tell. But either way, it was an extremely close team fight. You see the health bars after, and Minji clearly knows he messed up. It's unfortunate.
Oh, the damage onto Bruce is absurd. And with this Baron buff now, as well as the engage tools really being lost, Driver no longer with that flash means getting onto Betty is almost an impossibility.
Yeah.
It is just going to be all these towers picked up from beyond. It's the mid lane inner, it's going to be the bot lane inner. And admittedly, Minji trying to make some headway up in the top side. He might actually force out a recall because he will do a lot of damage to this tower. It is still going to be beyond though, pressuring on in the bot lane. They're trying to use the Poppy ult to clear this minion wave, and in fact they do. Minji being matched by Lakai now. How much damage did he get to the tower? I'm not entirely sure.
Pretty
Looks
low.
very, very low. And I think that is pretty much the best thing Minji could be doing.
Yeah.
While maybe the static shiv helps with this clearing of the minions, it does feel like you can't really contest the fight. Although, admittedly, Lakai won't be able to be here. This can be a 4v5. There is no teleport on the Jax, as long as you don't lose too much health beforehand. But there is just so much poke coming out from the Gragas, Jace, and Kai'Sa.
They are managing to store it out for now. Beyond, I guess they thought they could do more with this Baron because they ignored this dragon the whole time. It's still up.
Yeah,
They're going to keep pressuring.
No real dragon win condition this game, it feels.
Lakai is going to knock on that top tower, though, so they probably can take quite a bit of gold away here, even if they can't break the base.
Kai's teleport's still not up, so if JT look before they get poked out, still could be a possible avenue for them to find a team fight win, although that being said, how do you look for a fight? It has to be a Hex Flash from the Alistair, and these pokes landing on him.
It's just like playing dodgeball.
It is, except if the dodgeball hits you, it kills you.
Suppose it does. Okay, level 16 for the Jace. Driver
Okay.
pops a dominance.
Yeah.
They want to try and force something.
I
But
think they might just be trying to put out the pressure to deny
delay,
this tower going down, although Magnus Storm committed. And it is only this cannon wave left. And are they going to be able to take it out? This is the last wave of the Baron. But it looks like they aren't actually able to take out this last minion. And with that, the base is broken. Bot lane inhib tower does go down. And now, despite not having the Baron anymore, you can still try to make siege onto that inhib if you so choose. But it looks like recalls are going to come through and likely to head towards that dragon.
I think so. Shojin here picked up for Lakai as well, which feels really, really good into this sort of composition. Probably work on the Zhonya's next. He's got the stopwatch and the Amtome. Those are going to be really big. I think critically as well for J-Team, they have the lifesteal, and they did actually have it before the Baron. I think the problem was, or maybe the problem still is, that Beyond feels so far ahead that you can land more poke almost than the lifesteal can do right now until they get a little bit stronger. A stopwatch there picked up for Bruce is going to make it a bit harder to take him down, but it feels like Beyond's backline out DPSs and out pokes. They just have everything right now. Konglei's even getting some healing reduction, which not often I think is a great choice, but this game I think is a pretty solid argument for it. He did this another game yesterday too, I think, or day before.
I hope it wasn't yesterday. He played only AD champs yesterday. Well, yeah. Whatever day it was. Now, what do you do here as J-Team? Because it feels like it's very hard for you to win a fight, because it's very hard for you to find a way onto this team without walking into so much poke beforehand. And now, with the Baron spawning in 2 minutes, maybe that is something you just have to try and force a fight around. Try and keep those summoners up and use it to try and get onto Betty, because Betty does not have cleanse. So if the Renekton does find his way onto Betty, can force out the flash, the heal, maybe even the ult, there is an avenue where you could potentially win. Because Zeri, if she is allowed to auto attack, will do a lot of damage. Same can be said for Minji. But it's just about trying to find the fight before you lose your entire health bar from the Jace or the Kai'Sa.
Pretty much, and there's more poke as well, right? It can come from the Gragas too.
Yep.
Has been landing some barrels, and I think they are looking for it here.
Magnus Storm
Kieran's,
is onto 3 of them, and she does not manage to get away, but Lava's getting very low, as is Kira's. It looks like Kira's might be going down. Minji picking that one up from itself. Counter-Strike now down, as Minji trying to wail here onto Lakai, but on the bottom side, you see that it is Betty who picks up a kill onto Bruce, and Minji not doing any damage to this Jax. Driver's doing a fine job of trying to zone, but with the killer instinct available, Betty finds his way into the fight nonetheless, and it's now Driver against the world, and with Driver's GA being procced, he's likely not long for this world, and with that goes J-Team. It feels like now, just dotting your T's, crossing your T's and dotting your I's, getting this game over with. It feels like it's about to be 3-0 in favor of Beyond.
Well, and I think definitely not the way people expected this series to go. not only one-sided, but BYG, the ones who are going to pick up the 3-0 victory here. Really great signs for them going on to the rest of the playoffs here. Lava, he's going to try to do something, but something is not enough. They pick up the win. They pick up the Nexus. Really nice performance from them.
Yeah.
And you do wonder, how much of that is, okay, maybe J-Team not paying the respects in terms of the Kaiser. Maybe it's not the J-Team we saw before showing up, but you still have to give a lot of credit to Beyond's performance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, pretty much everyone had their moment to shine in this series from Beyond. I don't think anyone looked particularly weak. I mean, there were some slip-ups here and there, but that's a given. It's League of Legends. It happens. But ultimately, everyone had their time to shine. Kongyue early games were pretty phenomenal. Found those first 2 kills on the Kazakhs, found the first blood there on the Gragas, and which was probably the best display of mid-jungle synergy we've seen out of Beyond.
That was nice.
Because it was pretty crazy clean, puts Minji at a disadvantage, and then, I mean, need we talk about the BYG bot lane? Because honestly, the fact that Betty got Kaiser 3 games in a row and put up the numbers he did on Kaiser 3 games in a row feels a bit illegal, and I'm going to say, from here on out, I don't know what it was about J-Team not banning the Kaiser, but whoever's going up against BYG next, you have to get rid of that.
Yeah,
Kaiser.
definitely can't give that one over. I guess it does feel hard because there's a lot of other champs to ban, but you see what happens when Betty gets his hands on it. And I think, I'm not sure if Betty will get the MVP for this game, and I don't believe he got it for the previous games, but I think I'd still probably give him MVP of the series just in terms of overall consistency across the 3 games. But I'm not sure who I'd give this game to. I'd maybe give it to 1116 or potentially Keres. I think Keres, Engage was really good at the end, and I think Keres also, I mean, you mentioned him already, but bit of an unsung hero, I think, for the whole series. Had some fantastic hooks, some fantastic engages. So it just felt like BYG, they really came to play, showed a different level, and that makes me really excited for when they finally take on PSG a bit later on.
Oh, it could be even next week, perhaps, depending on how tomorrow's game goes.
True.
So, yeah, that could be an exciting matchup. I mean, it's the expected matchup that we have to say. But, yeah, ultimately in this game, it was Beyond taking their 3rd one. Another display of talent, really, through the whole squad. And you have to feel pretty good about them. It seems like they have leveled up from the end of their summer, at least regular season. Not that they were any slouches by any means, but the fact they were so capable of cleanly taking out J-Team, despite having Driver so far ahead on the Jax and so far ahead on the Renekton in those last 2 games. Very promising signs, not only for Beyond, but especially, I think, for Lakai, who, while may have found himself at a disadvantage, didn't lose his team the game, which oftentimes is exactly what you need.
Yeah, and especially since Lakai, picked up MVP of the first game, it showed that while it wasn't, I guess, your traditional carry performance of getting a lot of kills, he did have a lot of impact, and that definitely bodes well for them. I think as well, it might be for Beyond, at least in the top lane, that could be the toughest matchup for Lakai to play against, right? Feels like Driver is the one who just really hard abuses that. I still think Arja could, I feel like Arja's champ pool definitely lends itself to taking advantage of Lakai, but it does feel like Driver's the more dominant laner.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, impressive display from the whole team. We've said it a number of times now. And for J-Team, I mean, they'll be headed now down to the lower bracket. Of course, they're not eliminated. And I believe they will go up against, I don't even know, one of the winners of our games next week. And that'll be exciting as well, because I feel like we didn't really see the true strength of J-Team in this one. We saw Driver doing extremely well. We saw Minji, 3 games of Tristana, and I will say he had times of brilliance, but I mean, particularly in that last game, that one Buster shot, for me, is enough to just tell him never to pick it again, because that truly was like, that was where the game really broke open. Driver finally found his way onto Betty, who had no sums, and he just got Buster shotted away and was safe to just play the team fight out, and they just got cleanly aced and kind of felt over from there.
That's rough, because we definitely talked Minji up as probably the most successful Tristana here in the PCS, but admittedly, the champ is just a lot harder to play when the game is even or even behind. And I think that that's what you can kind of expect now that you're in best of 5s. You're against teams that have had time to develop. And straight up, the teams you're versing now are probably a lot stronger than they were earlier in the split. And I'm expecting to see priority on the Tristana dropped at least a little bit. I'm not sure if it would be first picked again by J-Team, but I'm sure they'll have some adaptations for next time. And I could definitely see if there is a J-Team versus Beyond rematch later on that it could go differently, because it felt like draft was just so much of that game.
Yeah, it really did. And it just begs the question, why was Kaiser left open every single game? Because at least in the regular split, we almost never saw it left open against any team, despite the team that probably uses it the best, because they like to have a facilitator mid, which facilitates the Kaiser. Keres loves engaged supports. again, pairs
Yeah.
great with Kai'Sa. And then you just have Lakai, who oftentimes spends his time just peeling and like maybe finding engagements, but generally he just plays to peel for the AD carry, to peel for 116. Again, helps the Kai'Sa. And it just feels like as a champ that not only you can't give to pretty much any team in these playoffs, you specifically cannot give it to Betty because this guy just performs so consistently on that champ. And again, it is just the most broken champ on the patch in my mind, that why bother doing it if you don't have to?
I think I somewhat agree. Right, a lot of teams have decided to leave it open and pick up the Zeri, which I think is maybe it's good if you're the likes of Betty or Wako,
Yeah.
right? But I almost feel like unless that's you're one of those two 80 carries, that it probably just isn't worth giving over. I haven't really seen the Zeri perform the same from the likes of Cascada and Bruce.
Yeah, I think Eminem might be an honourable
That's true,
mention
yeah.
with the Zeri because I believe last split he looked like one of the best Zeris in the PCS at least. I mean, there was times we would just go in 1v5 and find the win. Again, you can say that about Wako and now Betty joining the fray. He's already done that on Zeri this split. So it does feel like there are those hyper carry, 80 carry players that will perform better on that counter pick. I don't even know if it's a counter pick.
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
more like an answer. Yeah.
Yeah, and it feels like there are 80 carries that will do better on that. And those are the ones with, as I mentioned, sort of about Cascada not having is the X factor. The sort of 80 carries that if they are given the lead, they will win the game for you. And that's not that easy as an 80 carry. It's quite easy to sit there and do damage. But to make the plays that actively win you the game, not as easy.
And this was a play, I think, for Beyond that really shut down a lot of Driver's win condition because Driver was just manhandling Lakai for a lot of this game, but so much pressure put towards him. And while a lot was traded back here, it makes it a lot harder for Driver to get anything done. I think 1116 played this sequence really well because has to know that he's the main target here. Space back just far enough that he couldn't die to the engage, flashes out, and then the overcommitment from J-Team, they're punished heavily. I believe that was 2 kills picked up there by the Jace, and the
Here comes the
shutdown on
third.
Kai'Sa in the bot side.
Yeah, 450 there.
Yeah.
Let's see how much this was.
I think this was 550. I can't remember, but we'll see. Either way, it just feels like more gold onto Betty, especially shutdowns, is just way too much. Tristan and Tigragus doesn't feel that fun. They definitely let this one go to Betty too. It was 500.
So you just gave over almost 1k gold
Yeah.
to Betty in the space of about a minute, which really was. I mean, you see it really in that gold graph. It's exactly between. I mean, what would you say, 16 minutes? And that's where that play did happen. And then
Yep.
from there, it did just kind of snowball out of control. Admittedly, there was another fight afterwards that J team looked pretty good in, but the time was ticking from your Renekton not being able to really compete as well as he was earlier in the game. And taking a look at damage, it was 116. I mean, you saw how much those shock blasts were doing to Bruce.
Yeah, I think he should probably pick up the MVP for that game.
Yeah. The level 2 gang or level 3 gang was phenomenally well played as well.
I think it's a good time for him to come into form as well, right? Because I think for a lot of the season, you were banning those facilitator mids away from 1116 because he needed them to perform, right? Because he wasn't really finding much impact on other champs. But now it feels like you're almost banning them because if he gets them, he's going to perform too well. Right?
Yeah.
You have to take them away from him. And unfortunately, there's 4 mid laners that need banning, and they don't have enough bans for him. It is Betty who picks up the MVP. I feel like that game wasn't even his best game from the series. But I think overall, for sure, MVP of the series for me. But I think it was just, there wasn't any one game where he just absolutely turbo 1v9. He just consistently dealt so much damage.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're seeing it there. 24% of his team's damage, and that was despite going up against a very far ahead Jace mid, which, just finds... It's not even fake damage in this game because they were too far behind with J-Team to be able to lifesteal it back. This was this is a replay for BYG, of course, but Lalva's steadfast presence there was pretty crazy. Also, Bruce started recalling or something there, or just stopped moving, which allowed him to die.
Okay, I didn't even notice that in the moment.
Yeah, it was again Betty picking that one up. That was what got him on the board to start with too. It was the first kill. It might have even. Oh no, first blood was mid.
Yeah.
But it was Betty's first kill, and then from there, I mean, just any gold onto that guy and you're feeling scared, let alone those shutdowns that came through afterwards. And I mean, it really was just Betty's game to carry after that. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I'm still so perplexed by J-Team's drafting.
It does feel kind of disrespectful, I guess, because you definitely... Again, I understand banning the facilitators away, right? The facilitatory mids. But remember who he's facilitating for. It's for Kongyue and for Betty. And if both of those are getting their pick of the litter in terms of champions, it feels like, was there any point to this? And I also think that in terms of shutting down, you know, the mid laner, at some point you might as well just leave them all up because your bans aren't finding any value, right? Like if he's still getting the Annie or something like that, you might as well just leave them all and ban 3 Betty champs.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised that they didn't just opt to leave, maybe ban the Nico, leave the Annie open and take the Tristana, the Azir into it, because Minji's Azir has looked really, really good, as well as just the champion in general. But that is, of course, the third game done and dusted. Beyond do pick it up. We are going to go to a break, after which we will come back for an interview with the player of the series, so stick around.
It's time to show how we stand. This is the glow up. Strike hard on that line. It's time to have some fun. Yeah, it's my life. That's right. And I've got to keep fighting. We're giving big love. We're gonna show them how it's done. That's right. Come on. This is our time and we're gonna show them.
Do you feel what the eyes can't see? You hear it calling way down deep. Trust your heart, it'll keep you true. This world expects so much from you. From the dark out into the light, it'll come in the middle of the night. You were raised in the secret place. Evil runs when it sees your face. Throne calls your name, you know it's your time. Good will stand and the shadows will hide. 1,000 souls will stand at your side. Take your people into the light. They don't take you alive. Stand here and You must follow me, my friend. Stay together, we can make it home again. Take a look at this place once more. The people, the home that you fight
Keep it for the love, we're never giving up. See it before we're gone, yeah. Keep on moving up, we're moving to the top. Talking what we've got, yeah. Take nothing else for granted, every win and loss. It makes us who we are, yeah. So keep on looking up, we're looking up. We made it, we played it, we took it far as we could go. We took it
Welcome to our post-game interview, joining by BYG 1116。欢迎来到我们的赛后采访。那我们今天邀请到的是 BYG 的116，跟大家打个招呼。
大家好，我是 BYG 中路116。
Although this game goes 3-0 in your way, but actually every game is extremely close. How does it feel like to win this game? 其实这是一场3-0啊，但其实每一场比赛内容都非常非常的接近。你能说定一下来心情怎么样？
就觉得我有想过我们会赢，但是没有赢得那么轻松吧。我认定是觉得会3-1，但是没有想到会3-0，所以算是很亢奋。
I believe we'll win, but I think we'll win in 3-1 fashion. I don't think it will go that easy today. Okay, next question. You're up against your old teammate Minji, and you're clearly had his favor this time. Did you do any particular preparation before facing him? 你今天对上的是你的前队友兼劲敌的明智，但你很明显是今天发挥更好的一方。对上他之前有没有特别做什么准备？
其实就一样平常心吧，因为我认为我打明智的话，我觉得我线上可能会有一些小优势，然后我会慢慢的把这些小优势扩大，就像在滚雪球一样。
I think I have some advantage in landing phase, especially, and if I can roll the snowball well, I have his favor. Next question. Against J Team in regular season, you go 1-1, but today you win 3-0. What do you think is the key point in this series? 例行赛的时候你们对上他们是1-1的比数，但今天却成功了以3-0收下。你觉得这个系列赛的决胜点在哪里？
我觉得决胜点应该在我们中野吧。我觉得我们中野能压制他们中野蛮多，所以我觉得能影响比赛做得更加的轻松。
I think our mid jungle today really outplay them a lot, and that make our series very, very easy. Okay, next question. You have qualified for upper bracket finals, and your opponent will be either DCG and PSG. They are going to face each other tomorrow. Who do you think will win? 你们在明天呢？你们在打完这场比赛之后已经确定晋级了胜部的冠军赛。那明天的对手 DCG 跟 PSG 的胜方就会在第3周对上你们。你觉得哪一队会在胜部冠军赛对上你？
我觉得应该是 PSG 吧，再加上无论定义就觉得 PSG， 我也想再跟 Maple 再交手一次。
I think PSG is clearly a favor, and I really want to face Maple once again. So I think PSG will win. Okay, before I let you go, I want to ask you the last question. Is there any words you want to say to your BYG fans? 那最后面就是问你一下，有没有要对支持自己的 BYG 的粉丝说的话？
感谢大家的支持，我今年会再带你们去世界赛。
Thanks for your cheering, and I will lead you to another World Day. That's it for today. That's it for today. Thanks for joining me once again. Let's go back to caster desk. 这个主播台会还给你们了。
Thank you very much for the interview there, Nash. And I think I love it when the feedback is like, oh yeah, our mid jungle really outplayed them, as if he's not the mid of that equation.
No, funny.
Admittedly, he's probably correct.
True, yeah.
It's very correct, I think, in general. But I think scary that he hopes to face Maple, again. I think you have to be careful what you wish for, because that guy has been really turning it on in the later half of the split, and we haven't seen him in the playoffs yet, but I'm sure he's about to be a freak tomorrow against DCG.
Yeah, that could be a real interesting matchup, you know, the Beyond versus PSG, not just because of how the teams have gone, but I also think Maple versus 116 in particular, they share a lot of that champion pool in terms of not just they play it, but the priority on them as well. So that could be real interesting. But yeah, of course, tomorrow's matchup, DCG versus PSG, and 116 at least believes that it will be a PSG win, and I think everyone kind of expects that, but we expect it differently from today, and we got a 0-3 for J-Team, so
yeah.
Who knows?
0-3 for Beyond. But anyway.
No, 0-3 for J-Team. You know, they have the 0.
Oh,
yeah.
true.
But I see what you're saying,
Yeah, my bad. Results, of course, we just touched on it. Had an argument about it even. It's Beyond who picks it up. True. And I think it was surprising in the fashion that it happened, I think, in general. Obviously, you expect Kongwei to find a lot early. He does that a lot. But the fact that 3 Kaiser games for Betty happened.
Yeah.
I know I've talked about it so much on this cast, but it is exceedingly surprising that it happens. But the bracket, it is going to be, of course, PSG versus DCG tomorrow. A muchly anticipated matchup, I think, in particular, that mid lane mission being very dominating. And you heard him in his interview, I believe it was yesterday, when he did say that he wants to do better in lane and be more aggressive, despite the fact that he is always at the enemy team's enemy's tower with the most lane-heavy runes you'll ever see and the most lane-heavy items you could possibly see. So, I mean, that could be exciting. I do think that Maple is probably going to do a whole lot better job than Kisei at controlling what Mission wants to do, and probably has a better champion pool to deal with that as well. So, something to look forward to tomorrow, I think. What are your thoughts on the series? I mean, we can predict it early. I honestly think this should be going ahead, a 3-0 for PSG.
I think I'd agree.
But it's hard to say that now, because I didn't expect this one to go to Beyond at all, let alone a 3-0 for Beyond. And I think DCG looked pretty strong against the Chiefs there. Obviously had that first slip up in game number 1, which you expect. You can't get away with anything like that against PSG, because even in the other games, maybe excluding the last one, there were still opportunities for Chiefs in game number 2 and 3. And if you give opportunity to PSG, they are going to punish, and they're going to punish pretty hard.
I think you basically just said exactly what I was going to say. I think that they are strong, but they're not clean, and I think that's what you need versus PSG.
Yeah, absolutely. But that is match number 3 in the books. Beyond will now progress on to face the winner of tomorrow's match. PSG versus DCG is tomorrow. It's an exciting one. We're finally going to get to see PSG in the summer playoffs, so you certainly will want to be there. But for now, enjoy Walk the Line, and we will see you tomorrow.